Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CalRecycle monthly public meeting for June. Thank you all who are still respecting physical distancing and participating remotely. We do appreciate that. It's still unclear to what extent and degree we'll sort of return to some form of normalcy for this, but these have proven to be a pretty effective means of engaging with the stakeholder community. But please understand that we're always available to have conference and video conference calls with you. So to begin today, we want to take a few minutes to recognize and acknowledge and try and come to terms with the impending departure of our Chief Counsel, Elliot Block. Most of you know Elliot, most of you have worked with Elliot and know him to be a person of remarkable integrity and depth and something of an institution, the former Waste Board and now with CalRecycle. I'm still very much in denial about all of this, and I'm working through it, not very well. But we wanted to take some time today to kind of just provide some comments, some reflections, some appreciation for what Elliot has meant to this organization, to our professionalism, and very much from my perspective, just to the spirit of who we are as a group and as a public sector agency. So interestingly enough, so I met Elliot in 2010, soon after the passage of Prop 26, and Elliot and I and about, 275 other people were jammed into this remarkably too small of a conference room to talk about the implications of Prop 26. And there were a host of chief counsels from various departments and agencies, and I was with the Department of Finance at the time, and so several departments that were under my portfolio were represented there. Had never met Elliot, but we were all jammed in. I was in the corner, and this was a very, very long meeting. And I didn't know him, but throughout, I think 3 times during this meeting, and it was again, a gathering of, what is the collective noun for a group of chief counsels? Is that a clutch, a coven, a gaggle? We were all, a what? Danger. A danger of chief counsel. But I kept noticing there was one person in the room who kept getting back to one fundamental question. And this was 2010. This was soon after the passage of the 2 EPR bills, carpet and paint. And they were sort of stuck in this limbo of Prop 26. And it's like, well, they were passed before the initiative, but the initiative requires that there's a look back on it. And everyone was pontificating on, well, how does Sinclair paint revolve around this? And what does change actually mean in statute? And it was just like this degree of reductive that I was losing my mind. But yet Elliot, every now and then, I think 3 times over the course of the meeting, kept saying, look, I have a pertinent issue right now that I need resolution on 2 bills. So what is the collective wisdom and opinion of this group on that? And people would prattle on or whatever, and then like 20 minutes later, but I've got 2 bills that I need to, and I was like, I like this guy, because he's here for a purpose. He's here to get clarity on something that is germane and relevant to what matters to him. And I was like, wow, that was a really odd meeting, but Elliot was like the best part of the whole thing. I'm like, I walked away going, yeah, that guy was on focus. He was on target and really looking out for the vested interests of his client. I think it was 2010, so it was just about CalRecycle at that point, right? Because that mid-year kind of thing. So
didn't work though, did it?
What's that?
It didn't work though, did it?
And it keeps haunting you, doesn't it? It keeps coming back. So that's where I first met him. And then years went by, and then I came here, and I was like, oh, hey, it's Elliot from that meeting in that room. And that day, what I saw that day is what and who Elliot continues to be. Very focused, but calm. And dedicated and committed to what it is the client needs. And you do it with great humor, with great focus. You do it with this institutional memory and perspective that is really remarkable. And I have grown to respect you greatly, even more from that day and forward. Every day that I work with you, I'm just like so grateful to know you, to have you as part of this team. You are an absolute asset. And I think all of us enter these jobs hoping to make a profound or a substantive change in some way. And I think of the things that you've done, there's one that, from my perspective, rises to the very top of what is most lasting and what will be most meaningful and important. And it is the team that you have built during your tenure as chief counsel is an extraordinary group of attorneys, a remarkable team that you have carefully selected, hired, trained, developed, mentored, coached, and guided. And so that, I think, is a legacy that you have put in place and that you will leave behind. So as I try and get over my denial, I take comfort knowing that you have done a remarkable job of building an incredible team that reflects who you are, it reflects your values, it reflects your acumen, and I'm going to miss you immensely, but we are in incredibly good hands because of what you've done. So thank you for that. Harley, I think you also wanted to comment, so I'm going to turn it to you at this time. I think that should work.
Morning, Harley Branch with the legal office. Just want to start off by saying, Elliot, this whole pretending to retire prank you've really taken this too far. And it is starting to get way too real, and I have got to call a stop to it. In all seriousness though, congratulations are in order. For 31 years of service to the state, 28 years with Cal Recycle and the Integrated Waste Management Board. We are beyond fortunate to have had your counsel all of these years, and you leave some huge shoes to fill, and we're going to be doing our best to fill those. You brought great skill to this job, but really, most importantly, you brought a sense of humanity as well. And you always came down on the side of the environment and on the side of good government, and we are all better for that. So I'm trying to get through this without getting choked up, but I have to acknowledge this transition brings a lot of mixed emotions for those who are continuing on here without you. It's going to be very hard coming into the legal office in the morning and not seeing you behind that desk in the corner office on 24. I'm going to miss wandering in there at all hours of the day, unannounced, to chat and complain, commiserate, and pick apart all the weird and Byzantine details of solid waste law. I'm going to miss your collegial companionship tremendously. Having said that, we've all been watching you mark this calendar for years now, with anticipation for this next chapter of your life, moving to Maui. You've had a laser focus on this prize for many years, and I know for a fact it's gotten you through on some of the tougher days around here. I'm genuinely excited for you and Eileen that you're finally on the cusp of this dream. You've got an amazing second act in front of you. You get to finally trade in all those hours of lawyering for maximum sunshine and Hawaiian breeze, unlimited running, swimming, and cycling in some world-class scenery. And you have earned absolutely every ounce of that reward. I do want to say a few things on behalf of the legal office. I want to express our genuine appreciation. We've been afforded unprecedented access to our chief counsel. And I've worked in other state agency legal offices, and what you've provided to us is really, it's unprecedented and rare. You always had an open door policy for us to come in, and it was always unannounced. You always took the time to sort through all of our issues, from the simple ones to the maddening ones, and your advice was always spot on. and you had a talent for cutting through all of these weird little legal puzzles, breaking them down to their essence and getting to solutions that were workable and legally defensible. I know that our clients here may not have always been happy with some of the answers, but they were correct, and that's really important. I'm not sure how you managed to find the time all these years to spend that time with us and still be a peerless chief counsel to this agency. It was a superpower. You treated us as adults and trusted us to make the right decisions and gave us the things we asked for in order to succeed. And you solidly had our backs whenever we needed you there. You cared about us as people, and you provided us with an amazing work-life balance over all these years. I can't tell you how valuable that has been to us. So thank you. I know we've got limited time here because we actually have to have a monthly meeting after this. So I did want to leave you with one little nugget of advice. If you want to get the most out of your retirement right out of the gate, you have to change your phone number. Or we are just going to pretend that you never left. So Elliot, thank you. Mahalo and best wishes from all of us in the legal office and Cal Recycle on your retirement.
Thank you, Harley. Very much appreciated. I'm going to turn it to Adam.
Thank you. Elliot, I've been a state attorney for a long time. I've had a number of bosses, and you are one of them. And a good one as well, not to sell you short. It's been great working with you. Thank you for all you've done. You made my life easier as the lead attorney for DOR, mostly. And I agree with everything that Ken said, although I wouldn't have said it that way. And I also agree with Harley that you really need to change your phone number and your email address as well, if you don't want to be contacted a lot. And if you don't want a lot of people visiting you in Hawaii, then you shouldn't tell us where you live. All that being said, all joking aside, it's been great working with you. Clearly, you've earned this, and then some. I hope you enjoy everything that's coming your way, and it's going to be all good things, I'm sure.
Thanks, Adam. Mark?
Not much more to add to what's been said. Harley, that's great. I guess I would maybe attempt to add that from a program perspective, some of what Harley reflected in your willingness to be available to everyone, stand true for the program. Give you a random call and you'd pick up the phone and you'd either answer it on the phone or promise to get back, and sure enough, you did. And that was the normal. We tried not to take advantage of it, but sometimes we did. I think the other great skill that I would highlight is you were able to break down very complex legal issues into lay terms so that we could all understand it, or at least be able to explain it to people that we had to explain it to. And that's a skill, I think, for sure, to be able to break up the nuances and the complexities in an issue or an order or whatever it might be is a great skill. I see that in the staff you've brought in, so I think that has rubbed off on them, as well as the work ethic. So we'll try not to take advantage of your staff, but we probably will. So thank you very much for everything you've done for the organization, for the state of California, really. It's been great working with you, and we'll miss you.
Thanks, Mark. Zoe, did you want to say anything? Matt? There you go.
Want to echo what our colleagues have said, but also just express my appreciation. I've been with the state for 3 years, and you certainly helped in my onboarding and helping me understand, as Mark put, a number of different complex legal issues and breaking them down in a way that I could understand them, I could communicate them out to stakeholders and work with our team in CalRecycle. As Mark said, you are always available, and we do our best to not take advantage of that. But I've really appreciated, particularly the last couple of months as we're standing up the statewide commission and dealing with a number of different Bagley-Keene issues that are new to us, and bringing back waste board days for you as we're figuring out the best way to get this done. So I appreciate you. You have an incredible team. We'll miss you greatly, but we know we're in good hands. So thank you, and enjoy retirement.
Matt?
Yeah, Elliot, we haven't known each other for as long as some of the other folks up here, but I just want to say I appreciate your collaborative approach and your problem-solving attitude, and it pervades the office that you've created. The legal office, they sit in at meetings where we are digging into the meat of what we're really trying to accomplish here at CalRecycle. This is not a end of the pipe, let me read that contract before it goes off for signature legal office. This is a roll up our sleeves and accomplish the goals legal office. And that attitude and that perspective comes from the top. And it's a real asset here at CalRecycle. So I want to thank you for building that. And in a way, that is part of your legacy here at CalRecycle. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, well, so I think you've heard it, what you've built, what you've fostered, the excellent resources that were here when the department came together, and just, managing that, I think one thing I've heard is just, letting people be who they are, to find themselves, and that's trust and faith and great leadership. So I'm going to turn it to you, and for you to share your thoughts. Take your time. This is your moment. There's no clock on this.
Yes, Ken told me I could have as much time as I wanted, so guess what? No, just kidding. Wow, it's a little overwhelming, and this is a little hard, so just bear with me, but I'm feeling a lot of love. As Harley mentioned, 28 years here. And one of the things I've gotten to do in the last few months is go through all those old boxes of files. Back in the 90s, it was all paper. So, but it occurred to me, so 32 years with the state, it occurred to me that I've actually worked for the state in 5 decades, because 1989 was the first, right? I cut the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 20s. And then I did some quick math, and if you count monthly board meetings when we were the waste board and then our monthly meetings, the number's somewhere around, this is around my 334th monthly meeting. Do not feel that old. Along the way, just for fun, once our youngest got his driver's license, I started regularly bike commuting, as many of you know. So that's 11 years of that, and I calculated somewhere around 45,000 bike commute miles over 11 years. But here's just a quick one in looking through those old files. There's probably only 3 people watching this that will even know what this is, if you can read it. The front says, "I was there," and the back says, "Prevent or Impair, CIWMB 1995. So if anybody remembers what that is, you can send me a message. But it was a big deal back then. Nobody even remembers what it is now. But thank goodness we have scanners now and everything is electronic, because I am not joking. Because I had a lot of the attorneys that were here in the early 80s, late 80s, early 90s, about 80 boxes of old files that I went through. Almost all shred to recycle, but okay, I'm going to try not to make this too long, but I have been just so lucky, fortunate to be here. In the early days in the 90s, my kids used to laugh at the fact that I was a garbage lawyer, right? That was like, you're a garbage lawyer. What is that? But as you all know, and you know, it's always good to remember what we do here, and I have this conversation every time we do an interview, what we do here impacts everybody in California daily, right? What they put in their recycle bins and all that. And so what we do makes a difference, even if there are days when it doesn't feel like it. I was really lucky early in my career to work for two bosses, Jeff Marshner at the Fair Political Practices Commission. He went on to be chief counsel at DGS, and Bob Konheim here, who really were examples of how to be a good boss, but also a good human being, and to stay calm in the midst of swirling craziness. But you know, what really motivates me on a daily basis is just the people I get to work with. I mean, we've got things we do, but that's what's always brought me into the office every day. This has always been an amazing organization. We care about what we do, we work together, and with a couple of exceptions, we're really nice people. And you know, I mean, that's really what made it okay to come into the office every day, despite all the crazy stuff. You know, it's so easy to get wrapped up in issues, prevent or impair from 1995, which nobody even remembers what it is now, and deadlines. But I just would say, just remember to treat each other well, right? Issues come and go, people matter. And I've just been, you know, really fortunate here that way to be able to work with a lot of great people. It's been one of the things that's been so hard this last 3 months, right? I've been coming into the office. My staff is teleworking, and so I've literally been sitting in an empty legal office for 3 months. And it really reminds you of how important that human connection is. Teams is great. Zoom is great. It's not the same. And of course, as we've talked about the legal office, I've just been lucky. I have so lucked out in the people I've been able to hire over the years. This is the best legal office in the state by far. Not just saying that. So, as somebody mentioned, I'm leaving you all in good hands. Listen, I can't claim any credit. I've just lucked out. But it's a great group of people. For historical purposes, some of you know this. When I came in 1992, I was the 4th attorney in a legal office of 6 people. We now have 21 attorneys in an office of 28. It's actually just a sign of this legislature kept giving us more stuff. I mean, a large chunk was when we combined with DOR, but we just keep having more and more programs. So things got complicated. But I guess I've kind of grown along with the office, and it's gone. So, you know, I could prattle on for a while. We have other things to do. And I can see it. I've gotten to read a number of messages, so thank you. I haven't had a chance to read them. But it's been a great ride. And I actually want to thank you all for this. So do good and be good to each other.
Thanks, Elliot. It's a meaningful day. Yeah, so a few comments. Veronica Pardo, thank you very much for your kind words. Also, Doug Cobbold. Yeah, I think both of you capture it. Yeah, we're really going to miss Elliot, but I think, you know, we're just so grateful for you and very excited for, you know, as Harley, I think, rightly pointed out, this most exciting next chapter that's just going to be fantastic. So thank you for everything. Thank you. Great. Maybe, Zoe, there's a number of comments that are not necessarily tethered to things on the agenda. Maybe you can give me a hand kind of going through and you can kind of facilitate answering those.
Gladly.
Let me just jump to the first. So, Adam, there's a question here from Ralph Alcantar, and perhaps you can take it up during your section of the agenda. So, Mr. Alcantara, you had a question about sites opening at non-dealer sites receiving handling fees via AB 54. Adam will take that up during section, forgive me, I should have section H of the agenda. So thanks for your question, and we will get to that. Edgar, good to hear from you. The question, or the question is, since due progress has not been made on AB 1826 based upon the 2018 waste characterization study and 2018 disposal amounts, when will CalRecycle trigger the AB 1826 threshold for generators that produce 2 cubic yards per week of MSW? Zoe, do you mind responding to that while I turn off my auto refresh here?
Sure. So thanks, Evan, for the question. So we are reviewing the data from the waste characterization studies, and as you know, we're developing the 1383 progress report, and we will be making a formal determination soon, and we'll be announcing it in an upcoming public meeting on a path forward for that. So thank you for your question, and stay tuned.
Excellent. So just a comment here from Drew Kadanek, who's a resident who lives in La Habra Heights. Pleasure to be with you today, CalRecycle, as we discussed SB 1383. No questions about it. When it's passed in 2022, it's great that trash haulers will do this. So thank you for your comments on that, Mr. Kadanek. Joanne, yes? Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. Thank you. Yeah, if you could. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it.
Okay, a question came in from Richard Cohen at
there it is.
Elevated Packaging. Will California packaging policies and law consider adhesive labels adhered to packaging, which is to be composted or recycled? And, you know, as we're thinking about packaging and products that are generated in California, a goal is to make sure that those packaging and products align with the infrastructure to process those materials in California. So as we continue to have conversations around packaging, this will certainly be in consideration.
Very good, thank you. So, a bit of a lengthy question. I'm going to, Ms. Brash, I see you have a comment here regarding MRC, and so I think I will hold that because we do have that item on the agenda, if I'm remembering that correctly. So I'm going to hold your comment to that point and just jot a note to myself about it. So, sorry. Oh, okay, yes, thank you for that, Matt. Yes, also, oh, thank you, thank you, Matt. Ms. Brash, I also see there's a carpet statement, so we will take those up during those items. Mr. Medrano, yes, we have received your letter from the 14 municipal agencies in San Diego and Imperial counties. We received several letters regarding relief from organic waste regulations. We're aware of the concerns, and we're doing everything we can to communicate with stakeholders, and we are having internal conversations about all of that. So thank you for reaching out. This is a bit lengthy. I'm going to do my best to cover it. Question from Mr. Hall. Actually, Adam, have you seen this question from Michael Hall regarding PET?
Well, I'm looking at it now.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that I can address that during the DOR segment.
Thank you. I will. Thank you, Mr. Hall. We'll speak to your points during the update from the Division of Recycling. Nick Lapis from CAW would like to take this opportunity to commend CalRecycle for taking seriously the implementation of AB 34 and AB 1826. Been 9.5 years, respectively, since the passage of those bills, and this is CAW's words, unacceptable for any jurisdiction to have not fully implemented these programs in all this time. And also, we have an agenda item on that. Thank you. There is an agenda item. And there's also an agenda item for the next item that Nick raises with community composters. And so we will take it up at that time as well. So thank you for your comments. Appreciate everyone's patience. This is still kind of, I know we've done this a few times. The portal is a bit dynamic, and so we're doing our best to kind of navigate it as we go. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Mark DeBee, and if you could open up with solid waste entire facility update. I think Paulina's here to provide an update.
So Paulina's going to give an overview on the permits as usual, and then I'll have an announcement after you're done, Paulina.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Elliot, I wish you the best. You're always such a wonderful person to work with and always answering my endless questions, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, and it's up to you now, legal team. I'll be giving you a lot of questions, so be patient with me. All right, everyone. As Mark mentioned, I'm Paulina Lawrence, and I'm the branch chief for CalRecycle's Permitting and Assistance Branch, and I'll be providing an overview for the solid waste entire facility action items for this month's meeting. First couple things to start off with. The department concurred on May 19th, the Victor Valley MRF and Transfer Station revised solid waste facilities permit in San Bernardino County. The department also concurred on June 4th, 2020, Rogers Avenue's Transfer Station, which is a new solid waste facilities permit located in the city of San Jose. And then lastly, also on June 4th, 2020, the department concurred on McCourtney Road Transfer Station, which is a modified solid waste facilities permit located in Nevada County. Continuing on this month's agenda is the Recycling Center and Transfer Station for the city of Pittsburgh. This is a revised solid waste facilities permit. This permit, God bless you, this permit has a revised action, which is new revised action for August 1st, 2020. Next, continuing on the agenda is Recology Ostrom Organics, which is located in Yuba County, and this is for a new solid waste facilities permit. Action is needed by July 3rd, 2020. New to the agenda is Salinas Disposal, Transfer, and Recycling, which is located in Monterey County. This is a revised solid waste facilities permit. Action is needed by July 17th, 2020. Preliminary review of the permit package indicates the following proposed changes: an increase to the permitted maximum daily tonnage from 500 tons per day to 900 tons per day, an increase in the days and hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. On Saturday. And then lastly, a change in the facility name from Salinas Disposal, Transfer, and Recycling to Republic Services Post-Collection Facility of Salinas. Another new title on the agenda today is West Miramar Sanitary Landfill. I must think I'm in Marin today. This is located in the city of San Diego. This is a revised solid waste facilities permit. Action is needed by August 7th, 2020. The preliminary review of the permit package indicates the following proposed changes, and that will be the increase in the maximum elevation from 485 mean sea level to 510 mean sea level. Increase in the design capacity from 87,760,000 cubic yards to 97,354 735 cubic yards, and then update on the estimated closure year from 2025 to 2031. Just a continuing update on new emergency waivers and temporary waivers. Since last month's CalRecycle monthly meeting, the department has received 4 new emergency waivers for the following counties. One is for the city of Pittsburgh. This is for the recycling center and transfer station. Another is for the city of San Diego, which is West Miramar Sanitary Landfill and Miramar Greenery. And then lastly, Riverside County Badlands Sanitary Landfill. And that's all I have for this month. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I'm seeing none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very much appreciated.
So I also have an announcement about a retirement.
I can only handle so many of these, Mark DeBee, so.
After 29 years of state service, our friend and fellow colleague, Ken Decio, AKA Scrappy, also known as Braken, is retiring on June 25th. As many of you know, Ken was very instrumental in developing the 2015 composting material and transfer processing rulemaking, but maybe even more significantly, helped steer the SB 1383 EIR that was completed last year before. He's a key contact with LEAs and industry folks and has been a fixture at many of our LEA training sessions. Ken has the uncanny ability to build close professional relationships with every single person he worked with. And he never failed to lighten up the mood in any room that he entered with his fun-loving personality. We would like to recognize his many contributions to protecting public health, safety, and the environment during his time at CalRecycle. He will be missed, and we would like to send him off into retirement with buckets of well wishes and memories from all the friends and colleagues he has worked with over the years. It's my understanding that staff is setting up something called a Kudo board, which I looked up, and it seems to be a virtual card kind of thing. In this day and age, we have to look for those kinds of opportunities. And information about that will be sent out pretty soon. So,
Thank you,
so
Mark.
good luck, Ken. It's been great working with you. Some of these projects that I mentioned, we worked hand in hand, he and I, on. And he was a steady presence and very, very reliable, even though he had that personality of like, really? Are you kidding me? No. So many thanks to Ken.
Congratulations, Ken. That's terrific news. Ken is one who has always been just kind and thoughtful, and every interaction has been wonderful. I've always appreciated, especially during these last few months, but just these just quiet, subtle little notes from Ken that I've received, just of encouragement and just checking in. And, I don't know if I've said it enough, just how meaningful those have been, and how thoughtful you are for sending them on. And so this is extraordinary, and congratulations. It's absolutely well-deserved. And I hope that, we have the opportunity to see each other before you said June 25th? Yeah, so perhaps we can grab some time and just chat. So thank you, Ken. I appreciate all your dedication and effort here. Did you want to move to the?
We can move on to the next one, the grant awards. It's my understanding we're going to try to patch in Rebecca. Is she on audio? Oh, and visual. So Rebecca, please. It's your turn to present the grant awards for the Solid Waste Disposal Co-Disposal Site Cleanup Program. Welcome.
Perfect. Everybody can hear me? Okay. My name is Oliver. I'm the Solid Waste Cleanup Program. Hear a little bit of an echo on my side. Hope it's not coming through.
And you're cutting in and out a little bit too.
Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. It breaks up a little bit. There's no echo on our side, though.
Okay. I'm just going to move forward. Hopefully it won't cut out. So my name is Rebecca Oliver. I'm with the Solid Waste Cleanup Program, and today I'm going to be presenting our grant awards. Just as an overview, the cleanup program provides assistance to public agencies in the form of grants for both the illegal disposal and legacy landfill sites, as well as CalRecycle managed cleanup. The first of our 2 grant programs is the illegal disposal site abatement grant program, and that one provides financial assistance in the form of reimbursement grants up to $500,000. And the legacy disposal is the second grant program, and that one provides financial assistance in reimbursement grants up to $750,000. And the illegal disposal site grants that have been awarded are for the City of Yuba City, the City of San Pablo, the City of San Diego, the City of San Jacinto, and the City of Pomona. And the legacy disposal site abatement grants that have been awarded are for the San Diego County. And a little bit about the grant application selection process. It begins with the scoring criteria approval, which was approved in August of 2018 and will be approved again this year. And the notice of funds available was published on December 12th, 2019. The applications had a deadline of February 18th, 2020. And we received 12 applications for the illegal grant, which were a total of $2,876,370. We received only 1 application for the legacy grant, which totaled $696,000. We had a scoring panel of 3, and the recommendations for award were made by highest score. And out of the fiscal year 2019-2020, we are awarding the City of Yuba City $249,708, the City of San Pablo $158,773. City of San Diego will be receiving $303,738, and the City of San Jacinto will receive $140,000. We're also going to be awarding out of fiscal year 2020-2021, and that will be to the City of Pomona for $300,000, and the San Diego County for the Legacy Disposal Grant for $696,000. The grant agreements that we have already signed are for the City of Yuba City, and that was on May 29th, and the City of San Pablo and City of San Diego were signed on May 27th. We're currently working on executing the grant for City of San Jacinto, and once the state budget is approved, we will get the City of Pomona and San Diego County executed. And for our next coming grant cycle, which will be for fiscal year 2020 and 2021, we have tentative dates. So that scoring criteria will be published sometime this month. The notice of funds available should come out in August 2020. The applications have a tentative due date of October 7th, 2020, and the awards will be awarded sometime December 2020 or January 2021. And please feel free to contact us early. We'd love to hear from you and answer any questions. You can find more information on our grant program at calrecycle.ca.gov/LEA/grants/loans/solid waste. Are there any questions?
I'm just checking the portal, Rebecca, to see if there are. Let me ask you: Did the echo eventually stop? Because you were crystal clear.
Oh yeah, it stopped after like a couple seconds, so
Okay.
it might have just been
That's
small
good to
issues.
know. I think that for other presenters,
Well, Ken is looking for questions that
Yep.
might have been submitted. Couple observations. One is the first set of grant awards, I think, is interesting that they're down to the dollar. They're not rounded up except, maybe the cents. So that is very precision, very precise work to figure out the actual cost down to the dollar. So I think that bodes well for the program to, have applications that are that detailed and not rounded up to the near 1,000 or 10,000. So we have received a couple requests from current grantees asking for additional time to implement the grant because of COVID. And they've been processed by staff. They're very reasonable requests. They have attempted to complete some of the grant, but we're just not able to do things that required closer physical contact and those sorts of things. But for the most part, the grantees seem to be continuing on with implementing their grants and carrying out the work, remediating solid waste and other issues that are covered by those grants. Did any questions come in while I was rambling on?
No, I don't see any questions. Rebecca, thank you. For presenters who are on deck, I understand from the AV team and from Tina that the way to avoid any echo is to turn off the webcast of the public meeting if it's playing in the background, and that may alleviate any echo that's happening. So,
As they used to say, please turn off your radios
yeah.
when you called in. So. Well, some people
Wow.
remember.
How old
Okay,
are
good.
you? I mean, my God. Thank you, Rebecca. Very much appreciated.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. My apologies. Before we move to D, I neglected to invite Ashley Yee to come and say a few words about the status of SB 1383. I apologize about that, Ashley. So if you wouldn't mind providing us a bit of an update.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken. And congratulations to Ken Decio. I remember I started on the 10th floor when I first started Cal Recycle, and he was always a friendly face. And to reiterate Paulina with Elliot, congratulations. And I remember the first time I actually went to Elliot's office. I thought I was so cool because I was a staff person. This is about 7 years ago. And it's like, oh my God, I get to go to chief legal counsel. In the end, Ultimate's not that fun. So hopefully no one else ends up
Never
there.
meet your heroes.
But like Paulina said, Elliot always had an open door policy, answered every email, phone call that we've had, even as a staff person. And good luck to the upcoming legal office and new chief legal counsel, because you have to deal with me in 1383. So some updates on 1383. As most of you know, Cal Recycle was tentatively going to have a webinar yesterday about the SB 1383 progress analysis report. However, we postponed it. Once a new date and time are confirmed, we'll send out a message via our 1383 listserv, and thank you very much for your patience on this. As another update, Cal Recycle uploaded 8 case studies to the SB 1383 Education Outreach webpage that highlights jurisdictions who are already taking actions towards compliance. As a part of this, we would like to thank HF&H for putting these together, as it's a part of their contract. And so now for the meaty part and the submission of 1383 rulemaking package. For an update, we are still in the process of updating the package for submission to the Office of Administrative Law. Our hard deadline for submission to OAL is the first week of September. However, we're anticipating that we're going to be able to submit earlier than that. And then so what happens after the approval, fingers crossed. Cal Recycle with HF&H planned on originally doing a road show and actually going out to different areas of California, but with COVID, we want to be extra cautious. So we are planning to hold statewide webinars on the model tools after they're released, and the dates are yet to be determined. As a reminder, the model tools are a franchise agreement, enforcement ordinance, procurement policy, and edible food recovery agreement. And again, these are in preparation by HF&H, with Cal Recycle being the reviewer of them. So once we have the dates for the statewide webinar, we will also release those on the listserv, the SB 1383 listserv, and I'll probably be able to give a better update at another public meeting once we know a little, or confirm, I guess confirm better deadlines for that, or dates. Are there any questions?
Not specifically to that. There's the question about the dates relative to 1383 from Colleen Foster. I'm just going to read this off really quick. It's a question that we've, forgive me, it's several questions that we've received a few times, but allow me to read this because I think we're in this context. Since the final SB 1383 rule is not yet published and finalized and is significantly delayed from original timelines projected by Cal Recycle, forgive me, I'm turning off the auto refresh. is CalRecycle going to delay implementation deadlines for jurisdictional and generator compliance in order to provide the needed preparation time afforded in the original statute from rule finalization to implementation and enforcement? All of these dates identified in the new draft rule are compressed and put additional burden on almost half the state's jurisdictions that do not have SB 1383 programs. Can these dates be delayed without impacting the finalization of the rule in September by the Office of Administrative Law? Many jurisdictions across the state, and primarily in Southern California, have not been able to fully develop SB 1383 compliant programs, especially without clear direction as to what will be expected. Even though some organizations who bear no responsibility for compliance nor bear the costs, like jurisdictions for not having organic systems, must be recognized that this law is a landmark law that is yet to be final. Building facilities in urban, dense areas, especially in Southern California, is extremely costly and challenging, and even more challenged in a post-pandemic economy. Additionally, is CalRecycle considering the challenge agencies are facing in increasing rates to be prepared by 2020 compliant deadlines? Increasing rates and staffing resources is almost impossible under current emergency economic situations. Thank you for that question. I think, as we've previously articulated, many of those deadlines are in statute. And so we are very much bound by them. Elliot, I don't know if you want to expand on any of this, but we have heard from the jurisdictions. Please understand that we are examining all of these questions. We're considering what options may be and how we provide whatever technical assistance and guidance and direction to jurisdictions is available. It's also important to understand that we're available to kind of articulate what those regulatory expectations are and how we can assist with that. And Elliot, I don't know if you have anything additional to add, and Zoe, I'll turn it to you.
Actually, I think you just about covered it. Those deadlines and the effective date of the statute, of the program is in statute. There are some provisions in the regulations that will allow us to consider some of these things, but it's really going to be on a case-by-case and jurisdiction basis when we get there in 2022, which is when the program actually starts. Our goal was always to have the regulations in place as early as possible. They will still be adopted and approved well more than a year before the statute actually requires them. Understanding COVID-19 has changed a lot of things. We are looking, as Ken said, at those issues where we have some flexibility within our jurisdiction, but we are somewhat limited by how statute is set up right now.
No, I think you both covered it well. Just that we're committed to having these conversations and working with jurisdictions and doing what we can within our authority and understanding if there are resources that we can offer that aren't on the table. So let's continue to have the dialogue and work together to meet the goals as we can.
Very good. Ms. Foster, thank you very much for your question. Yeah, I think that, Ms. Foster, you now have confirmation that we did get your comment and a response to that. If that is not the case, if there was something else that you provided, please let me know, and we'll correct that. Ashley, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Great. Okay. Well, Matt, may I turn it to you for the next item? And please note we have a comment from Nick Lapis about that I will read.
Do you want to read that comment at the end or at the beginning?
I'll read it at the end after
Okay.
the
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. So this first item in the local assistance section is compliance investigation results regarding the implementation of mandatory commercial recycling and also mandatory commercial organics recycling programs for jurisdictions. We've got Joe Rasmussen, who will be presenting live and in person today about, so Joe, would you come up to the podium, please? About the jurisdictions that struggled to implement these two important recycling programs. So, Joe, do we have slides for Joe? Oh, right, you mentioned that. Yeah, Joe will be speaking without slides.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. A key component in maintaining the success of the mandatory commercial recycling, or MCR, and mandatory organics recycling, or MORE, laws is CalRecycle's role in overseeing how well jurisdictions are implementing these programs. CalRecycle reviews each jurisdiction's compliance with these laws as part of the reviews required by PRC Section 41825. Additionally, CalRecycle may evaluate at any time whether a jurisdiction is in compliance with these two laws. And back in January 2017, our director sent a letter to all jurisdictions informing them of the at-any-time review process. The process specifies that if staff identifies a gap in how a jurisdiction is implementing the requirements of either of these laws, then a number of things will occur. Staff will notify the jurisdiction so they have the opportunity to address the gap in a reasonable amount of time. If the gap is not addressed, then staff will inform the jurisdiction that a formal letter of concern from CalRecycle to the jurisdiction is coming. Once the letter is received, the jurisdiction will have 30 days to respond with a plan to correct the gap. After CalRecycle receives the jurisdiction's response to the letter, or lack thereof, an agenda item will be presented at a CalRecycle monthly public meeting. The public item will indicate one of three potential staff recommendations. Number one, the jurisdiction failed to respond, and staff recommends that the jurisdiction be referred to CalRecycle's enforcement unit for consideration of a compliance order. Or, number two, the jurisdiction's response to the letter is inadequate, and staff recommends that the jurisdiction be referred to the enforcement unit for consideration of a compliance order. Or, number three, the jurisdiction's response to the letter is adequate, and staff recommends that the program be assessed again in 12 months. However, if the same gaps still persist within the next year, at any time, an agenda item that refers the jurisdiction to the jurisdiction compliance unit for consideration of a compliance order will be presented at CalRecycle's next public monthly meeting. Staff's analysis of program implementation is based upon the Countywide Integrated Waste Management Plan Enforcement Policy, Part 2. The enforcement policy is required by PRC 41825. It was originally adopted by CalRecycle's predecessor, the California Integrated Waste Management Board, in August 2001, and then revised in June 2015, pursuant to AB 341, AB 1826, and AB 1594. Staff utilizes the criteria delineated in the enforcement policy to determine the extent to which a jurisdiction has implemented or has shown a good faith effort to implement its selected programs. In general, most jurisdictions are taking the MCR and MORE mandates seriously and are implementing programs, which is great. This request for approval addresses 27 jurisdictions that CalRecycle, our local assistance and market development staff, found have significant gaps in program implementation for MCR and/or MORE. These gaps were determined during LAM staff's annual review of each jurisdiction, conducting on-site visits to verify program implementation, and reviewing documentation, including annual reports, hauler data, outreach and education materials, etc. The request for approval provides a summary of the program gaps and an overview of how each jurisdiction will correct the program gaps for each of the 27 jurisdictions. The most common MCR or MORE program gap included high levels of noncompliance coupled with a lack of or ineffective annual follow-up to all of the regulated entities that were not recycling. LAMP staff will closely monitor each of these jurisdictions over the next 12 to 18 months. If any of these jurisdictions do not make adequate progress on implementing the plans that they submitted to CalRecycle, then LAMP staff will make a referral to the Jurisdiction Compliance Unit, or JCU, for further investigation. JCU will then conduct an independent investigation and consider whether a compliance order should be issued. Jurisdictions that fail to satisfy the conditions of a subsequent compliance order may be subject to a fine of up to $10,000 per day. So before concluding, I just want to give kudos to staff and the jurisdictions for all their work and just name a few of our LAMD team members who worked hard on this RFA. We have Ray Carranza, Caro Cruz, Primo Nunez, Jeffrey Taylor, Melissa Gomez, Jenna Westling, Apollo Fredney, Mia Hunt, Mallory Burden, Wendy Dunlap, Samuel Sassu, Catherine Ferrer, Rhiannon McCullough, and Jill Larner. And so this is delegated to Matt for signing. But if anyone has any questions or comments, now is the time.
Great, thank you, Joe. So I realized that the comment I read earlier from Nick was intended for this item, and this was taking the opportunity to commend CalRecycle for taking seriously the implementation of AB 341 and AB 1826, the 9.5 years that have passed since the passage of this bill. So that comment was intended for this segment, so I just wanted to correct that. Thank you, Joe. This is an upcoming one. I see no other questions on this in particular. Matt, unless there's anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is that LAMD staff, right, CalRecycle staff stands ready to provide technical assistance and help these jurisdictions increase the participation rates in organic recycling and regular recycling for their commercial accounts. And we look forward to bringing these folks into compliance as a positive outcome for these jurisdictions. And more details about the specific jurisdictions and the issues that they face and their plans for getting into compliance are in the RFA. So if you have interest in this item, I encourage you to download the RFA that's linked in the agenda. Thank you, Joe, for a thorough presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, please, Mark to be.
So, yes, thank you very much for the presentation. And Matt, just to piggyback on your remarks, CalRecycle continues to focus on compliance first, and your folks are really focused on that and working with the jurisdictions. My group is the one that is asked to step in when things aren't working right. They're not moving forward. So I just wanted to add that stroke in there to say, to encourage folks to work with your guys so that they don't have to be referred to JCU for formal enforcement and potential penalties. So there's always that black shadow hanging over that we like to provide or have to provide. We don't enjoy it. So.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. If you want to go ahead and pivot to the next item, the grants and loans program.
Right. So the next item I want to introduce is the eligibility criteria and evaluation process for the tire-derived aggregate grant program. Tire-derived aggregate, for those of you not in the know, is a substitute for gravel and other aggregate fill materials made from waste tires. And it's got excellent lightweight and drainage properties. And we're seeing this as an important market for waste tires throughout the state. So Calvin Young will be presenting remotely. And we've got some proposed changes to the criteria and eligibility. But I don't want to steal Calvin's thunder. He will go into all that.
Yeah. Good morning, Calvin.
Good morning. Is it working?
You're coming through clearly. Yes, sir.
Yay. Gotta love technology. Well, first and foremost, let me echo my retirement congratulations for both Elliot and Ken. I've known them both for a long time and well deserved, well earned. So good retirement, guys. Anyway, the tire-derived aggregate grant program, CalRecycle's waste tire market development programs basically try to promote a sustained and diversified market for a variety of products using waste tires. Tire-derived aggregate, or TDA, is one of the important components to accomplish that. TDA is often used as an alternative for a conventional aggregate in various civil engineering projects. And we have Public Resources Code 42872 and 42873 that authorizes us to provide grants for various activities, including tire-derived aggregate grants. The draft 5-year plan, which is kind of our spending plan for everything related to waste tire, the tire fund, allocates $850,000 in each of 2020, 21, as well as 21, 22. But as we all have been listening to the news for the last several months, there is a great deal of uncertainty regarding COVID impacts on the state budget. So all amounts for grant programs are always subject to change. We propose to review fiscal year 2021 and 21-22 applications using the same process we have in the past, with the exception of the proposed changes that we're going to discuss here shortly. Eligible applicants are all California local government entities, cities and counties, special districts, JPAs, University of California, Cal State Universities, California community colleges, public schools, state agencies, qualifying Indian tribes, private for-profit entities, and nonprofits. I think everybody except me. I don't know. So we have a lot of eligible applicants. Projects, we're kind of splitting a little bit differently this year than in the past, but it's been eligible that way before. Mechanically stabilized tire-derived aggregate, which was what they used down in Santa Barbara, and with great success, and that was a very, very wonderful project down there. Low impact development. This is the stormwater mitigation measures that you'll see for like infiltration galleries and other things of that nature. Lightweight fill. These are the popular slope stabilizations and fixing landslide repairs and retaining walls. Vibration mitigation, we had some of that a while back with some BART rails before, but it is eligible activity in there. Landfill projects. This is where we basically replace the aggregate for the leachate and gas collection systems and some other things having to do with landfills. We've got 6 different proposed changes, and I know typically we tweak changes, but we decided to be a bit more customer friendly and a little more aggressive on meeting the needs of what our stakeholder community have been telling us they need. So these are the 6 areas that we are looking at. And I'm going to go over each of one in a little bit more detail here. We're going to adjust the installation cost reimbursement based on project type. We had identified, we started the program at a reimbursement of $7.50 a ton, and we're still proposing to keep that for landfills. But what we found is, over the years, the reality of the cost of installation of the materials was significantly higher. So based on feedback from stakeholders, our experience that we've gained, as well as our TDA contractor, we are proposing to adjust that consistent with what is described in Table 2 and up on the screen at this time. Additionally, the experience that we've gained identified that the engineering and design cost reimbursement needed to be revisited. So what we have done is, based on feedback, again, from stakeholders and our knowledge and experience and our TDA contractor, we believe that these amounts here, shown both the current as well as the proposed reimbursement percentages, should be adjusted to better correlate with the complexity of different project categories. We also found that in some projects, again, especially with the activity down in Santa Barbara County, as well as some other projects, that geosynthetic material was a significant cost in many cases. And as we're trying to overcome barriers for entities to use TDA. We're trying to remove as many obstacles and barriers as we can. So accordingly, we are recommending that we add cost reimbursement for geosynthetic material, whether it's a grid or fabric material, that is needed specifically for a TDA project. So we will allow reimbursement for that. Also, as we've gone through things, we identified that initially when we provided a lot of cost and reimbursements, we included testing costs to see if the material was the right size and what have you. And it was only $5,000. And what we found is basically now our TDA contractor is providing that testing, so we no longer need to include that as a reimbursement. On very large projects, we originally, years ago, back in 2012-13, provided not only for regular projects, but also for what we called a very large project, 4,000 tons of material or more. What we have found, again, in experience, is that probably don't need that designation of a very large project and the significantly higher grant amount. So staff recommends eliminating the very large project designation and the $750,000 maximum grant amount, but retaining the current maximum of $350,000. Staff believes that that is adequate for, it's been adequate for all of the previous projects, and we anticipate that to be the case going forward. Back from 2017-18 through this year, we kind of did a pilot of providing an ongoing application process. And with that, we had 3 deadlines or application due dates within a fiscal year. What we found during this last 3 years is the continuous application process is useful, but that we could probably get by with 2 application due dates per year rather than the previous 3. And these are our timelines. We're looking at probably going out with our notice of funds available next month, well, next fiscal year, there we go. With applications due in both September and January. Again, we were speaking of 2 application due dates with corresponding time to review, and with grant agreements being distributed probably in November of 2020 as well as April of 21. And everything in this fiscal year, which would be fiscal year 2021, the grant term ends on April 1, 2023. I guess it's April 1 because somebody has a warped sense of humor, such as myself. I would like to thank Loretta Tamadong, Albert Johnson, and Stacy Patnow for their input and guidance on this. And that concludes my presentation on this particular item. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Calvin. I'm seeing none on the portal. Getting a bit of an echo that might be coming from your side there. Matt, I don't see anything on the portal for Calvin. Thank you, Calvin, for that presentation.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Calvin, and thanks to all the staff who worked on that. This item is delegated to me, and I plan on approving it based on the staff recommendation. Our next presentation is also from Calvin, and he will be talking about the eligibility criteria and evaluation process for the Rubberized Pavement Grant Program. This is a staple of our tire diversion programs, and there are some pretty significant changes based on customer friendliness, trying to be more responsive to our stakeholders and applicants, as well as really trying to leverage the availability of these limited funds to further CalRecycle's tire diversion and waste prevention goals overall, even outside of the paving arena. So I want to thank staff for their innovative work on this particular RFA, and hand it over to Calvin again to discuss the changes to the pavement grant program.
Thank you, Matt. Somewhat similar to the TDA item. Here we go. Again, this is another one of our key programs to help promote a sustainable and diversified market for a variety of products that use waste tires. And I think we have done this for a number of years, and it pretty well, it's pretty well accepted in most corners that it's a proven material that improves performance, extends the life of the roadway, and as Matt mentioned, is an important component to accomplishing CalRecycle's goals. Similar to the TDA program, those same public resource sections that authorize our grants also authorized our rubberized grants for the TDA, also authorized our grants for rubberized pavement. You'll sometimes hear us refer to the rubberized pavement as asphalt rubber or rubberized asphalt concrete, as well as our rubberized chip seal for our eligible product in there. So if I use some of those terms interchangeably, bear with me. That's kind of where we're looking at. The draft 5-year plan, which is again our spending document, basically allocates $4,387,000 for fiscal 2021 and $3,787,000 for fiscal 21-22. And again, because of the uncertainty regarding COVID and other impacts on the state budget, funding is subject to change. And as I mentioned for the TDA, again, we intend to use the applications for the next 2 years, reviewing those in the same process we had used in this current year, 1920, except for the items, the proposed changes we're going to be talking about here in just a moment. Eligible applicants are local governments, cities and counties, other local government agencies, again, joint powers authorities, special districts, regional park districts, qualifying Indian tribes, and California state agencies, but only the state agencies for Class 1 bikeways, greenways, and disability access projects at parks. The projects must use only California-generated waste tires processed in California, which is the same requirement for the tire-derived aggregate grant program. They must use material that contains a minimum of 300 pounds, equivalent to 15% by weight, of tire-derived crumb rubber per ton of rubberized binder. And the asphalt rubber hot mix projects must use a minimum of 2,000 tons of asphalt rubber hot mix, also referred to as RAC. The chip seal projects must use a minimum of 40,000 square yards of rubberized chip seal material. Because there are so many areas in the state, and some areas are more developed in their use of rubberized pavement than other areas, we found it useful to basically break the state into 2 geographically based tiers. The base level of reimbursement is $10 in one area and $20 in another, as well as 50 cents for square yard of rubberized chip seal and $1 in others. Essentially, the lower dollar amounts are down in Southern California, by and large, which is a much more competitive, cost competitive marketplace. And they also have a more developed availability of material. So the prices are much more competitive down there than they are, say, in the Central Valley or Northern California. Because the program's intent is to enable entities to experience the material's benefits and hopefully choose it in the future due to the benefits, and this is a market development program, we gradually reduce the reimbursement of the materials a little bit every couple of times that they come to get grants, to where after, we'll find out here in a moment, they basically are no longer eligible for grants. But if they are a regional applicant, which is one of the benefits, we do not reduce the reimbursement rate. So it would still be the $10 and $20 for regional applications. Maximum grants are recommended to be $250,000 for individual applications and $350,000 for a regional. Oops. There we go. Our proposed changes, as Matt mentioned, you can kind of put them in three broad categories. One is leveraging other CalRecycle goals, and another would be improving customer service and user friendliness, and the third being funding. So on the leveraging side of things, what we were looking at is what can we do that is relatively easy to do and something that maybe is a little higher bar for individuals or entities to achieve, but would have greater rewards. So because one of our goals, as we just mentioned in the previous item, is promotion of tire-derived aggregate, one of the things that we are going to require is that appropriate public works staff participate in viewing a web-based video regarding the use and benefits of tire-derived aggregate. Not a high bar, but it's a way to get more exposure to tire-derived aggregate for the people that are likely or possible to be using it in the future. Another one is to require evidence that an applicant implements best management practices regarding its vehicle and equipment fleet. Because again, where the CalRecycle and our waste management hierarchy is important to us, and the highest level is source reduction. So we would require that applicants certify that their vehicle and equipment fleet would implement best management practices, including regular maintenance of proper tire inflation, at least monthly. The third area that we're looking at is to provide an inducement for adopting and implementing policies that go much further in implementing specific CalRecycle and environmental goals. We believe that many eligible applicants already have strong environmental programs, and they should be rewarded for their leadership. Other applicants may be considering improving their efforts, but maybe need a little additional inducement. So we propose that if an applicant, and in the item itself, there's three little A, B, and C that they would go over, but I'll go over these right now. If an applicant satisfies one of the three conditions, they would receive priority funding over all other applications. Now, in a perfect world where there's plenty of funding, that may not be as big of a deal. But as we know, funding is likely to be rather limited. And again, as indicated in the request for approval item itself, we indicated our how much was requested versus how much was actually available. And the program's actually been oversubscribed half of the time in the last handful of years. And the last 2 years, it has indeed been oversubscribed. So especially if we're looking at potential reductions in funding, the ability to so-called pop to the top of the priority list is a pretty big deal. If an applicant satisfies two of the conditions that I'm going to mention in a moment, then not only would their request be prioritized above everybody else, except for those that we statutorily have to put there, they would also receive the greatest reimbursement rate for its applicable tier. Remember, I mentioned that the reimbursement rates start at $10 and $20 depending upon their geographic area. So if they satisfied two of those, they would pop to the top of the prioritization and get the highest reimbursement rate. So what are those three conditions? Number one, an applicant would adopt and implement a policy that rubberized pavement is either the default material or that an alternative bid using rubberized material must be considered for all appropriate pavement projects. B, or 2, the applicant adopts and implements a policy that tire-derived aggregate is either the default material or that an alternative bid using TDA must be considered for all appropriate projects. And 3, the applicant adopts and implements a policy that it will use retread tires for all applicable fleet vehicles and equipment. We realize that those are big asks, ASKS. So that's why we were also providing such a healthy incentive by basically going to the top of the priority list in case of oversubscription, as well as providing full funding for whatever their particular tier is in their geographic area. The next area that we're looking at is on the customer service and user-friendly process. In the past, we have required applicants to indicate the various streets that they're going to use, the amount of asphalt rubber or rubberized chip seal that they're going to use. And if they changed, a year or two down the line before the grant was closed, if they wanted to pave Main Street instead of Elm Street, they had to go in and they had to request the change. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense right now. So instead of requiring itemizing the various streets, we just want to know how many tons of asphalt rubber hot mix you're going to use and how many square yards of chip steel. And especially in these challenging times, both worldwide, nationally, state, and locally, if they need to be flexible in their pavement projects, this will afford them that flexibility. Our hope and our desire is that by providing that flexibility, if they're not able to do Main Street for some reason, that they could turn around and do Elm Street without any additional administrative burden. Another thing that we found is in order to encourage new users of the material, we authorized to pay the full cost difference between the asphalt rubber hot mix and conventional asphalt for those grantees that either had not received a grant before or only received one grant. And what we have found in actual practice is because they received the full amount of that particular tier, the $10 or $20 a ton, that covers pretty much the full differential. And that the documentation that was required to identify what the difference would be and to get reimbursement for that was a little onerous, frankly. So what we've decided, well, what we recommend is then to make it a little bit easier on everybody, just eliminate that full cost difference. And in the vast majority of cases that we've identified, that amount for the top tier would basically take care of funding the project. And speaking of funding, that's a nice segue. These items here basically are responding to what we had previously had was for 5 years, we had a temporary $5 million additional spending authority for the program. That spending authority went away in 2018-19. So starting in 1920, instead of having nearly $8 million in available funding, we have significantly less. Plus, with the challenges and the uncertainty regarding COVID and that impact, we're uncertain as far as where things may eventually fall. And we're going through the various drills currently, and we all know that the state legislature and the governor are going through the state budget. But in order to more effectively align our program demand with available funding, we're recommending 4 items for proposed changes. First, When we had the additional $5 million, we allowed grantees to apply in following year for an additional grant. So we had some grantees that were getting awards year after year after year. We no longer have that $5 million, so we recommend going back to the previous approach, which did not allow grantees to apply in the year following their award. We also had increased the number of asphalt rubber hot mix projects from a maximum of 6 to a maximum of 8. We recommend reducing that back down to the previous amount of 6. Rubberized chip seal had already been 6. We didn't change that. So both the asphalt rubber hot mix and rubberized chip seal would be subject to a maximum of 6 grants, or applicants would be limited to 5 previous ones. And if they're approved, the 6th one would be their final one. We're also looking at, again, reducing the maximum grant amount to $250,000 for individual applications and $350,000 for regional applications. Again, this is we had a temporary increase because of the additional funding. This is in response to that $5 million spending authority going away. One of the things that we did previously to encourage regional applications, well, let me back up just a moment. Regional applications, we're always wanting to encourage them because they have a tendency to be kind of a champion at the local level and would pair up with a neighboring jurisdiction that was less experienced. And the impact was basically to provide a more experienced entity to kind of shepherd along a less experienced entity so that they both experience the cost benefits of higher bidding and all of those kind of things. Well, what we did was in certain circumstances, when a grant solicitation was oversubscribed, that's when there's more requests than available monies, then individual applicants that had used less than 50% of an award in the previous 3 years went to the bottom of the list. And what we are recommending is, because of how everything's are, that basically regional applications would be the same requirement, or the same process would apply to regional applicants, that if they're applying for a grant and had used less than 50% in the previous 3 years on an award, that they would also go to the bottom of the stack. It's just basically applying equity to regional applicants and grantees that we currently apply to individual applicants. The timeline for the program is that we would be looking at a NOFA probably in July. Applications due the end of October, grant agreements in January, February, and again, April Fool's Day 2023, grant term ends. I would like to thank Loretto Tamadong, Nate Goff, and I'd especially like to thank Matt Hannigan, who encouraged us to think outside of the box to make these programs more responsive to the stakeholders and leverage other CalRecycle goals. So thank you. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Very good, Calvin. Thank you. I don't see any. Give it a second or two for any additional comments. No, I'm not seeing any at this time. So Matt, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Calvin, for going through all that with us. This item is delegated to me, and I do intend to approve it based on the staff recommendation. That said, these are a lot of changes. I believe we did a fairly robust stakeholder engagement process in making them, but if you're a stakeholder and you have questions or concerns about these, send me an email. I'll hold off on approving these for a few days. And just make sure everybody understands the changes and is comfortable with them. And thank you to the staff for making these changes. The goal here is to introduce cities and regional governments to the use of this material. And so if you're asking why there's restrictions on applying year after year, or why there's a maximum of 6 projects per entity, we're really trying to rather than just purely subsidize the material, we're really trying to give experience to the relevant public works staff so that this material will be adopted on a regular basis, even without any grants behind it. So that hopefully provides a little context for why we're putting some of those restrictions in place. I believe our next agenda item is the award for the Community Composting for Green Spaces Grant Program. This has been a long time coming. We've been working on this for some time. The idea is to help us understand barriers to starting and managing a locally based composting program, identify success factors for those types of programs, provide models for community composting programs, and most importantly, to provide resources to get those community composting programs expanded or launched in the first place. So this is our first ever Community Composting for Green Spaces grant. And I especially want to thank our staff, Heather Williams, Bob Horowitz, Marissa Cota, Melissa Sanford, Roz Ferez, and our EJ lead, our environmental justice lead, Maria Salinas, for really advocating for this program right at the intersection of our greenhouse gas reduction and our environmental justice goals. So we have Heather Williams from the Statewide Technical and Analytical Resources Branch to present the information on the program and announce the winner. So Heather, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Williams. First, I'd like to congratulate Ken and Elliot. You will be missed. My best to both of you in your new adventures. Today, I'm here to request approval for the grant award for the Community Composting for Green Spaces Grant Program for fiscal year 2019 through 20. This new California Climate Investment Program differs from our previous organics grant program focused on larger compost facilities with advanced technology processing by helping develop community-scale composting solutions that directly benefit those communities. This program empowers residents to take control over a small portion of their waste stream, provides resources for them to come together to turn those wastes into a powerful climate-positive product, and then to leverage that product into revitalized spaces, stronger, more resilient communities, and more control over the community's food security. CalRecycle began developing this program in November of 2018. Staff conducted numerous site visits to community gardens, urban farms, and community composting sites from March 2019 through January of this year. In October of 2019, we reached out to community organizations to solicit input about green spaces and to help prioritize the types of assistance needed through an online survey. Almost 250 survey responses were received. The information from the survey was invaluable as we fleshed out the program criteria, which was discussed at the December 2019 CalRecycle public meeting, and approved shortly after. The grant solicitation opened online February 13th and was advertised to the many new contacts we had made through our outreach and survey. Of course, when the COVID emergency situation occurred in March, we heard from potential grantees that more time would be needed. In response to that request, we added an extra 29 days for applicants to complete the process. Today, we are asking for permission to award the grant. Grant documents could be signed soon after, and we anticipate the grantee could begin outreach for project sites this summer. The grant will run until March 1st, 2023. I guess a little bit less of a sense of humor on the April Fool's Day there. At this time, we expect to learn a lot about how to build impactful community composting programs. 3 applications were received. The top scoring application was from the People, Food, and Land Foundation. This nonprofit organization will sponsor the California Alliance for Community Composting to implement this grant. The core California Alliance for Community Composting team members are in the forefront of community composting organizations operating in California today. They have over 15 years of hands-on experience working with disadvantaged and low-income communities in California. They have already developed working models and best management practices for community-scale composting. They know how to share their enthusiasm, excitement, and passion for this work with others and to build the community support that will lead to lasting change in the neighborhoods they serve. They propose developing a total of 50 new or expanded sites throughout California. As requested in the grant solicitation, the project plan includes developing project sites in 6 key regions of California to ensure geographic distribution of program benefits and model programs within reach of every community. Many of the planned benefits for these project sites are the exact benefits communities are crying out for today. Places to gather that are safe and inviting, fresh and wholesome food, community empowerment, and jobs. The majority of new positions created by this program will be created in the project site communities. These will be part-time paid positions. Composting can help make our urban areas cleaner and greener. It's not difficult to do, but it does require tools, organization, and knowledge. This grantee proposes to develop a community composter training curriculum that offers professional development and career options for new or practicing community composters. Tools and other resources to make composting efficient will be provided. The grantee will meet with each community to find out about their needs. They will present their curriculum to each unique community with culturally appropriate site-based learning and training opportunities. Whether an urban forest, an urban farm, a community garden, or park, all of these green spaces can be improved by the use of compost and the presence of dedicated compost experts. We expect these project sites to continue operations beyond the grant term, resulting in lasting improvements in organic processing infrastructure. During the grant term, the program is expected to turn urban organic waste into more than 15,000 cubic yards of finished compost. Using that compost, communities are empowered to transform compacted and depleted dirt into fertile, productive soil. This soil can hold more water and more carbon. The plants grown in compost-amended soil are typically healthier, more attractive, and produce more food. Bigger, healthier plants also pull more carbon out of the atmosphere, which is key to stopping the worst impacts of climate change. Studies show the food produced using organic methods is more nutritious. The compost can also be used to spark transformative community climate adaptation projects, such as orchards, urban forests, as well as park and creek restoration. The grantee has stated that sustainable community composting hubs that inspire joy and lead to lasting transformation are characterized by organizational cultures of trust and the open commitment to bigger-than-self ideas that unify, such as social justice, community well-being, environmental health, and living in a world of beauty. The grantee has laid out a plan to engage communities in creating this concept in real space at 50 sites across California, and they will report on what they discover about best practices and success factors applicable to community-based sites statewide. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I'd like to thank everyone who has played a role in developing this program, and there are many. CalRecycle Management for allocating funds and supporting development, all of the stakeholders who took the time to respond to the survey, ask questions, or provide input, especially all of the folks who took time out of their busy lives to invite me onto their sites and show me how impactful community composting can be, how engaged surrounding communities become, the depth of environmental knowledge that is being shared, as well as what is needed for sites to thrive. Michelle Martin and Marissa Cota from our grants unit, Maria Salinas, our environmental justice coordinator, Roz Faraz and Melissa Sanford from fiscal process and oversight, Anthony Bellistreri in legal, my entire team in STAR, especially my supervisor Bob Horowitz and Kristen Pidcock, and many others. This has been a truly collaborative effort, and we are all excited to see this program move forward. This slide shows the program email and my contact information in case you would like more information, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have now.
Very good. Heather, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I appreciate the point. This is very much a team effort cut across various areas of the department, including our Environmental Justice Program Manager, Maria Salinas, and her counsel and leadership in doing this. But yeah, thanks to FIRM and everyone in STAR and legal. Definitely, a lot of hands involved in making this happen. So thank you for that. I have, I think, 6 comments that have come via the portal. The first from Nick Lapis with CAW. I would like to take this opportunity to commend CalRecycle for taking seriously. Oh, forgive me, that's the same one. Sorry. This one from Nick Lapis. Nick, you've been very vocal today. Thank you. CAW would like to express strong support for the community composting grant being awarded today. This project, as proposed, will create a strong community composting infrastructure statewide. Community composters serve as the public ambassadors for our organic waste recovery efforts. They serve to build community buy-in for SB 1383 and build connections between organic waste and the broader food system. Thank you, CalRecycle staff, for seeing the importance of this sector. I will move now to process question from Vanity Campbell. So give me a moment to get to that question. Please detail any Please detail any pre-solicitation communications or contact that the agency had with any of the applicants. How did this communication impact the agency's decision to award? Perhaps Matt or Heather, you can kind of speak about the process that we went through in terms of developing the grant, the solicitation, and everything like that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so the grant selection process is very prescriptive and formalized to prevent any undue influence of the selection committee. It sounds like this email or this message may be from an applicant who was not selected. And I'd encourage you to contact the grant manager. We typically do debriefs to debrief on why certain scores were scored the way they are. I believe the process, and Elliot, maybe you can correct me, if you'd like access to actual emails between applicants and CalRecycle staff, a public records request is the avenue for that. We retain all those emails and they're available for public examination. I always say the E in email stands for evidence. So never forget that at a public agency. Okay, well, thank you for your question, and we will work with you to get those answers.
Great, thank you for that. The next comment is from Calla Rose Ostrander with Phoenix Rising Resources. Writing today to support the application of People, Food, and Land Foundation and the California Alliance for Community Composting to the CalRecycle Community Compost Grant. I work with PFLF and am on the board of LA Compost. I've been involved with supporting the development of the community composting space in California for the past 5 years and very excited to see the state recognize this important community activity. The results of supporting a robust community composting space will be benefits to local communities and green spaces and work to support broader statewide diversion of organic material under SB 1383. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very much, Calla, for that. A couple more comments here. Courtney Brown with the California Alliance for Composting, California Alliance for Community Composting. We're extremely grateful for CalRecycle's preliminary selection of People, Food, and Land Foundation for the Community Composting for Green Spaces pilot program. On behalf of the California Alliance for Community Composting, the key collaborators to PFNL Foundation in achieving the proposed objectives, our alliance strongly supports this application. Both our teams have extensive experience working with community composting systems across California, empowering disadvantaged communities in environmental justice efforts, and building complex programs to address multiple community needs. This collaboration will ensure that we offer dynamic, comprehensive, and consistent support services to every project site as communities work to establish healthy composting programs at the local level. Again, I want to express my appreciation to CalRecycle for developing an initiative that will genuinely seek to assess the role, contributions of community-based composting efforts in reaching California's methane reduction goals and producing high-quality compost for improving local soil health. If the CCGP award recommendation is approved, our alliance looks forward to working closely with CalRecycle on this pilot program. Thank you for that, Ms. Brown. Just a couple more. Will Bax with the Sonoma Compost Renewable Sonoma organization. I was impressed by the proposal put forth by People, Food, and Land Foundation for the Community Composting for Green Spaces pilot program. Community composting will provide a huge contribution to bring into awareness the need for increased organics diversion, keeping organics clean, as well as expanding the knowledge with the public at large how organics recycling will benefit healthy soils and carbon sequestration to mitigate climate change. This statewide program will benefit organics recycling at large, as well as bring into the foreground how organics recycling will help heal our planet. This project will be another tool to help us meet the goals of SB 1383 and other organics diversion bills. I would like also to express much gratitude to the California Alliance for Community Composting for their contribution to this project. Thank you, Mr. Bax, for those comments. The last comment I have is from Eleanor Crescenzi. I would like to express appreciation for all the hard work, especially from environmental justice advocates with CalRecycle that has, excuse me, let me start over. I would like to express appreciation for all the hard work, especially from environmental justice advocates within CalRecycle that has resulted in state funding for community composting programs for green spaces serving underserved communities. We look forward to working together to transform systemic oppression and build equity in the waste management system alongside the state and its diverse peoples. Thank you very much, Ms. Crescenzi. Just refreshing the portal. I don't see anything new. Matt, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. There was a question, if we can go back to the tire grants, the tire pavement grants. One question came in from Joanne Sprogus that said, if permission is no longer required for a grantee to change which streets will be repaved, will that raise environmental justice concerns? And that's interesting, but in the past, we have not really exerted influence over which streets get paved, and doing so is not really part of our expertise. We don't have urban planning expertise.
Right.
And so I hear the question, but we think the benefit in streamlining the process is valuable enough that we're going to eliminate that requirement to notify us if they change which streets they're going to be paving. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, and I think your point is well taken, that those kind of decisions are local planning decisions, local permitting decisions that would need to go through that process, independent of our award process. So thank you for that question. Well, I see nothing additional with regard to the community composting grant programs. Again, Heather, thank you very much for that presentation. Matt, if there's anything else on that.
Well, thank you, Heather, for the presentation. This item's delegated to me, and I plan on taking staff's recommendation and approving it today.
Very good. Thank you for that. We're going to move now to the next item, which is on the Local Conservation Corps grant program. Just to be mindful, it's about 5 noon. We will obviously continue through to the conclusion of the agenda, but just want folks to be aware that we are going to run a little long this morning. So hopefully you brought snack.
Right, and for the folks tuning in for the carpet and mattress items, we'll be getting to those. We just might be here for a while. Okay, so this item is the awards for the Local Conservation Corps grant program. There are 14 certified local conservation corps that receive funding from CalRecycle. They participate in a variety of recycling projects at schools, businesses, community events, large venues, and multifamily complexes in support of the state's 75% solid waste recycling goals. Allocations for this grant funds come from the Beverage Container Fund, the E-Waste Fund, the Used Oil Fund, and the Waste Tire Fund. And so these conservation corps undertake activities to address waste in all of those areas. The total grant amount for these 14 entities is $24,343,000. This approval is delegated to me, and I have signed it. And I want to thank Derek Link, as well as Jim Madden, Wendy Box, and Joseph Pacheco for their hard work in seeing this through. And thank you to the local conservation corps for all their hard work and job training and mentorship. Those programs are extremely impactful for California's youth as well as our environmental outcomes. So thank you to that entire community.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, the local conservation corps have been a long time partner with us, and such a transformative experience for so many people who go through that. And so I'm really excited that we that we continue to support this to really make a significant and profound change in the lives of these youth.
That's right. What's our next agenda item, Ken?
It would be mattress.
Oh, very good.
So while you're teeing that up, Ms. Foster, I see that you've sent a few additional questions. I would invite you to give me a call, send me an email, and let's set up a time to kind of talk through your questions. They're very thoughtful. Appreciate your interest in understanding kind of what we're doing resource-wise to prepare for 1383 implementation, and also appreciate the point that you have the need for guidance to local governments as they begin to develop their own internal resources to make that happen. So let's have a much longer conversation and talk about some of your ideas. Also, in response, Adrena Hernandez asked a question with regard to an EO that is dealing with grocery stores not allowing the use of reusable plastic bags. We have no information or update on that at this point. Once a decision is made one way or the other on that EO, it will be released through the governor's office. There's usually press that follows that, and it's also available on a variety of state agency websites once that information is updated. Zoe, I don't know if you have anything additional to add.
Yeah, the governor's office released a press release last night that announced the extension of a number of EO provisions. And I just wanted to clarify that the provision related to plastic bags and also the provisions related to beverage container recycling were not included in the extension. We've received a number of questions from stakeholders, so just wanted to provide that clarification. And to the other point in your question, as I'm pulling it up here, Adrena, about whether or not CalRecycle intends to do outreach at the expiration of the EO. We do. So we will be doing outreach to jurisdictions and grocers, and we'll continue to provide outreach on the Cal OSHA guidance as appropriate. So thank you for your question, and we look forward to working together once the EO expires.
Great. Thank you, Zoe. Matt, thanks for that. Turn it to you.
All right. So our next action item is the consideration of proposed 2020 statewide mattress recycling baseline and goals. The purpose of the used mattress recycling and recovery program is to reduce illegal dumping, increase recycling, and reduce public agency costs for end-use life management of used mattresses. CalRecycle first established the state mattress recycling baseline and goals in December of 2017, and they became effective in January 2018. The department is required to review and update the baseline and goals before July 1st, 2020. And in order to do that, we held a public workshop on March 9th to discuss various concepts being considered for the 2020 baseline and goals. And I want to express my gratitude to the stakeholders who participated in that workshop and provided us with comments, which were so valuable as we refined the baseline and goals that are being presented today. I do want to make a note for Ken and the stakeholders that we are proposing a modification to the RFA that's posted on the website. This pertains specifically to 2 of the proposed program-specific convenience goals, which are required to be, these 2 goals are required to be updated by January 1st, 2021, so we do have a little bit of time. We got some late data and feedback that we could refine these goals based on better data. And so we would like the opportunity to use additional time that is afforded to us in the statute in order to explore opportunities to further improve those proposed goals and associated metrics. These are the convenience goals for consumers and for retailers that we'll be reconsidering based on new data. So I'd like to now turn the presentation over to Nikki Castagnetto for a remote presentation and the staff's recommendation on 2020 mattress recycling baseline and goals. So Nikki, are you with us? She might be on mute. Nicole, you may be muted.
I thought I was going to, okay,
There you
unmute
go.
myself. Okay, let me pull that back up.
We can hear you. I'm
Okay,
not hearing an echo.
Okay. Sorry, hold on. There we go. Okay. My presentation, thank you, Matt. I said this on mute earlier. Thank you and good afternoon, everybody. My presentation today will cover the baseline and goal statutory requirements and our proposed 2020 goals. And as Matt mentioned already, I will discuss the goals that will go into effect July 1st, 2020, as well as the goals that we're proposing to revisit later this year that will be effective January 1st of 2022, but will be established by January 1st, 2021. The state mattress recycling baseline amount and the state mattress recycling goals, which I will refer to as baseline and goals, are to be established in consultation with the Mattress Recycling Organization, or MRO. The 2018 baseline and goals are fully described in the RFA, and they focus on annual increases in the number of mattress units collected for recycling, annual increases in the percentage of materials recovered from recycled mattresses, and maintenance of the number of units renovated. The MRO is required to demonstrate good faith effort to comply with the recycling goals in its annual reports beginning July 1st of 2019. And starting July 1st, 2020, and every 4 years after, the department reviews the baseline and goals and determines if any updates are necessary. The Act was modified in October of 2019 by AB 187, which amended the law to include, among other things, additional baseline and goal requirements related to consumer convenience and retailer access to collection sites. As opposed to the goals established in 2018, all of which were statewide goals, the proposed goals discussed today include statewide goals that go into effect July 1st of 2020 and program-specific goals that go into effect January 1st of 2022. The current and only MRO in operation in California is the Mattress Recycling Council, which I will refer to as the MRC. The statewide refers to activities that occur both inside and outside of the MRC's program. As an example of that, recycling operations outside of the MRC's program would include recyclers that are not contracted with the MRC or solid waste facilities that recycle used mattresses on site. The data used to establish the 2020 baseline and goals came from the MRC's annual reports, as well as all of the statewide data reported to CalRecycle from mattress recyclers, renovators, and solid waste facilities that report to us annually. And I will refer to those as reporting entities. The baselines used for the proposed goals use 2018 data, which represents the most complete and accurate data set, with the exception of the consumer convenience goal, which I will explain more later. The proposed baseline and goals were developed following the public workshop, as Matt mentioned, which we held in March of this year, as well as in consultation with the MRC. For the first statewide goal, staff proposed setting a statewide recycling rate, which includes mattresses managed both inside and outside of the MRC's program. The statewide recycling rate is calculated by dividing the number of units recycled and renovated by the number of units recycled, renovated, and disposed of in landfills. Using annual report data submitted by the reporting entities I mentioned earlier to the department, staff calculated the statewide baseline of 81%. During the department's consultation with the MRC expressed a need for this goal to provide some flexibility to account for fluctuations in reporting as well as, for example, to submit their annual reports to us in a timely manner may impact the overall accuracy of the statewide recycling rate. And additionally, changes to the economy may impact the number of units sold, and therefore the quantity of used mattresses available for recycling may also be impacted. Statute requires CalRecycle to take into account relevant economic and practical considerations in the development of the baseline and goals. We took into consideration that the impacts to recycling over this time period resulting from the current economic recession are not fully known at this time. And taking all of this into consideration, staff proposed a goal of 81% plus or minus 5% for years 2021 through 2024 to allow for some variance in data reporting from entities as well as account for potential changes in the economy. Staff proposed setting a statewide recycling efficiency rate, which again includes mattresses collected both inside and outside of the MRC's program. This goal proposes to increase the amount of material that is actually recycled from what is collected statewide. The efficiency rate is calculated by dividing the total pounds recycled and renovated by the total pounds recycled, renovated, and disposed of in landfills. Using annual report data submitted by the reporting entities to the department, staff calculated a statewide baseline of 65%. The MRC suggested the efficiency rate goal range from 60 to 75% to account for external events outside of the MRC's control. For example, there's a potential for secondary markets of used mattress materials to be negatively impacted by events such as a public health crisis, like now. And staff acknowledged the MRC's concern relative to its program as part of the statewide goal and proposed a goal of 65% plus or minus 5% for years 2021 through 2024 to again provide some flexibility to account for events outside of the MRC's control. During the 2020 public workshop, staff proposed including renovation in the formulas to calculate the statewide recycling and efficiency rates as required by statute, as well as removing the renovation baseline because it is not an accurate way to monitor the program's impact on renovation. Through significant outreach to renovators, including site visits, phone calls, database and email communications, and through consultation with the MRC, staff learned that a variety of factors unrelated to the program have the potential to impact renovation. For example, outside factors such as consumer preferences for new mattresses whose price points compete with renovated mattresses, individual business decisions made by renovators, as well as the importation of low-cost mattresses into the United States. Recently, the International Trade Commission, or ITC, preliminarily determined that the U.S. mattress industry has been materially injured by its imports of finished mattresses from 8 countries, with final determinations from the ITC coming later this year. The MRC agreed with CalRecycle's proposal to include renovation data in the statewide recycling goals and the removal of the renovation baseline. However, some stakeholders expressed opposition to the removal of the renovation baseline, citing the need for transparency and access to units for renovation rather than recycling. Staff considered the comments made by stakeholders and decided to retain the renovation baseline and update it from 150,000 units, which used 2016 data, to 225,000 units, which uses 2018 data. And this is because the 2016 renovator data was very limited and significantly underreported. Staff recognize that the renovation baseline is not an ideal metric to assess the impact of the MRC's program on renovation activities in the state, and staff will continue to utilize all available data to evaluate potential impacts on renovation. To be convenient, access to mattress recycling, drop-off, and disposal should be free to consumers. Staff propose a goal to add 3 additional convenient collection opportunities throughout the state, regardless of socioeconomic conditions. During the 2020 public workshop, CalRecycle proposed setting the baseline at 190 sites using the most current data reported by the MRC in its 2018 annual report. After consultation with the MRC, we proposed the baseline of 120 to reflect the number of collection sites in 2016 instead of 2018, and agreed to include other collection opportunities such as retailer take-back and curbside collection programs. While the baseline starts at 120, the annual increases start from the number of the MRC's no-cost collection sites and curbside programs available in 2018, and will eventually also include retailer take-back. The metrics for monitoring achievement of this goal will include the number of sites in the MRC's collection network, disposal facilities that accept mattresses, retailers that take back old mattresses when delivering a new mattress, and recycling facilities inside and outside of the MRC's program that accept mattresses, provided they are also at no cost to the consumer. This program-specific goal related to consumer convenience and consumer access to the MRC program needs to be established by January 1st, 2021, and will become effective on January 1st, 2022. Staff initially proposed a goal to increase consumer access to the MRC's program, which consisted of a baseline of 89.6% of residents living within 15 miles of an MRC collection site. And this was based off the MRC's program convenience analysis that was included in its 2018 annual report, with 0.2% increases each year beginning in 2022. Since posting the RFA, staff received feedback from the MRC that the proposed baseline underrepresents the actual level of convenience provided by the program. Excuse me. Staff have considered this input and determined that if additional data is made available, there's an opportunity to refine the proposed consumer convenience baseline and goal by including metrics from the retailer take-back and curbside programs collection mechanisms. In light of these comments, staff recommend that the director not adopt the consumer convenience goal at this time and direct staff to conduct additional consultations with the MRC and stakeholders and bring back a request for approval regarding the consumer convenience goal later this year. On or before January 1st, 2021, the following convenience goals will become effective January 1st, 2022. The MRC must establish at least one permanent mattress drop-off location in each county, and the MRC must hold 2 events per year in counties with less than 2,000 residents, unless that county already has a permanent site. And for reference, 52 out of 58 counties had a permanent site based on data from the MRC's 2018 annual report. Staff proposed setting a goal to increase retailer access to the MRC's program, which consisted of a baseline of 59% of retailers in the state being located within 20 miles of a permanent collection site that accepts units from retailers. Since posting the RFA, staff have received feedback from the MRC that the proposed baseline underrepresents the actual level of convenience currently provided by the program. The baseline proposed by staff does not account for the large volume collection services currently provided by the MRC to retailers, as this data was not available. Additionally, there may be other concepts to explore to more fully capture retailer access to the program that require additional time to consider. In light of these comments, staff are recommending the director not adopt the retailer convenience goal at this time, and direct staff again to conduct additional consultations with the MRC and stakeholders and bring back a request for approval regarding a retailer access goal later this year. Statute requires the Mattress Recycling Organization to provide no-cost freight services to retailers, healthcare facilities, educational facilities, military bases, and lodging establishments that have more than 100 mattress units. The MRC currently provides entities such as retailers no-cost freight services as part of its commercial volume pickup program. Increased convenience for these entities may lead to an increase in good quality units entering the program for recycling to advance the statewide recycling rate as well as efficiency rate goals. I touched on the stakeholder comments already throughout the presentation, but they are fully described in the RFA. In summary, we received 11 stakeholder comments regarding the proposed baseline and goals, and the comment letters ranged from opposition to removal of the renovation baseline, encouragement for more substantial annual percentage increases for retailer convenience, and general support of the proposed goals. The tables on this slide summarize the state mattress recycling baselines and goals that I just discussed that staff are recommending the director approve at this time that will become effective July 1st, 2020. And as previously mentioned, staff recommend the director not approve the proposed goals on this slide at this time, and instead direct staff to consult with stakeholders and the MRC to further develop the convenience goals and bring a separate request for approval to adopt retailer access and consumer convenience goals to a subsequent public meeting later this calendar year. And again, statute requires these goals be established by January 1st, 2021, and the effective date is January 1st, 2022. And that concludes my presentation. We'll pass it over for any comments. Thank you very much.
Very good. Nikki, thank you for that presentation. So I think there are at least two comments. The first is from Joanne Brash, who's representing the California Product Stewardship Council, although I understand from her colleague, Doug Cobold, that she had to jump off this meeting and take another call, but Doug is around if there's any follow-up comments. And today's comments are on behalf of CPSC. We thank CalRecycle for listening to stakeholders and adjusting the proposed program baseline and goals with the input provided during the department's workshop and comment period in March. We echo our appreciation to everyone involved in adding metrics and goals for consumer convenience and retailer access. We stated in March that we wanted to see an increasing recycling rate year over year. The flat goal of 81% per year until 2024 is concerning. However, we are still assured programmatic growth with the introduction of consumer convenience and retailer access requirements, and increasing goals of these metrics at the recycling rate remains constant. We thank CalRecycle for listening and keeping the renovation metric, but CPSC is concerned with no growth in renovation goals or improvements in reporting mechanisms. If neither CalRecycle nor MRC can require participation of refurbishers for the reporting requirements, we would like to see MRC incentivize more voluntary reporting of reuse and renovation. Matt or Nikki, if you had any comments on Joanne's points?
I think those are strong points that we'll certainly take into consideration. Reporting and data allows us to set better goals. And thank you for the comments. Nikki, do you have anything to say about that?
I was just going to add on, the RFA that was posted was prior to us altering our recommendation. So some of those won't be we're not directing to be signed right now. So, further consultation with CPSC would be great to have more feedback from them in the process to develop them further. So
thank you. And we can discuss kind of like relevant timeframes and when things need to be determined and authorized and approved. So thank you for that, Nikki. From Nick Lapis with CAW, thank you for being responsive to stakeholder comments about retaining the renovation baseline. Renovation must be an integral part of this program. Not tracking the refurbishment separately could have concealed any negative impacts on renovators and undermined the waste hierarchy. Thank you for your comments, Nick. I'm just going to refresh the portal here really quickly. And I do not see any additional comments on this item. So Matt, I'll turn it back to you. Nikki.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nikki. I understand we have Mike O'Donnell with the Mattress Recycling Council on the line to provide some comments. Mike, are you available?
Matt, I'm here.
Oh, great. That's great. Okay. Well, thank you. Go right ahead.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Nikki, great job in the presentation. That was very helpful, I think, for a lot of stakeholders to hear that. And Matt, thank you for your comments regarding the delay of the 2 goals. I think that'll be really beneficial as well. I'm Mike O'Donnell, Managing Director for the Mattress Recycling Council. We are the MRO that operates the program in California. Again, appreciate all the work of the department staff in these goals. I know it was a very complicated process, which is just going to continue on. For background, MRC's program has been operational in California for over 4 years, and we've demonstrated consistent and meaningful improvement to achieve program objectives and 2017 goals set by the department. As highlighted in our 2018 annual report, over 82% of mattresses discarded in the state of California are now diverted from landfills. Over 90% of California consumers have convenient access to the program, and over 70% of our volume is being recycled into other useful consumer products. This program is by far the largest and most successful mattress recycling program in North America. MRC is supportive of most of the proposed baselines and goals. Just have comments on 3 sections that I think would benefit stakeholders and the relevance of program data moving forward. The first point is the statewide efficiency rate. MRC now understands that this is a purely aspirational goal and not a program goal. MRC urges the department to remove aspirational goals from the RFA, since we feel it's confusing to stakeholders, since MRC is not obligated to meet those aspirational targets. My second point, Nikki, you already mentioned this earlier, is regarding consumer convenience. We feel that more discussion is required to establish clear and fixed metrics to determine how consumer convenience will be calculated. This is a really important goal for us. We can't have the metrics be on a case-by-case basis. We need some fixed approaches for it, and I know that we can reach a good solution. And the third point, again, already discussed, is retailer convenience. We agree that more work and discussion is required to establish a better methodology to determine that retailer convenience. The proposed goals do not include the fact that MRC is already providing statewide no-cost freight and recycling to all mattress retailers and other entities with more than 100 units to dispose of. We're doing this well ahead of the 2022 statutory requirement for retailer pickup. I'll leave it at that. Again, really look forward to working with the department staff to clarify and improve these goals and provide some meaningful metrics for evaluating our performance. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And thank you for the comments from the other stakeholders as well, the Product Stewardship Council. Did we get any other comments? Okay, well, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move that that document forward for approval, the conditional approval. So, and to the stakeholders, stay tuned on working out those remaining goals. So thank you. I believe our next agenda item is the consideration of CARES, the contingency plan. So this is the California Carpet Stewardship Program contingency plan. Assembly Bill 729, which was passed in October and became effective on January 1st, 2020, put in place a new requirement for a carpet stewardship program to submit a contingency plan that describes how program activities will continue to be carried out in the event that the program is terminated or the revocation of the carpet stewardship organization's plan. Statute also requires that carpet stewardship organization to set up an escrow account or trust fund into which it would transfer all unexpended consumer fees and funds and ongoing assessment income following the termination or revocation of their plan. On April 30th, 2020, CARE submitted its California Carpet Stewardship Program Contingency Plan pursuant to the new statutory requirements. I'd like to invite Fareed Faroot to present staff's review of CARE's contingency plan and make their recommendation to the acting director. So Fareed, I believe we've got you on the line.
Yep, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fareed Farhat. I'm a senior environmental scientist at the Statewide Technical and Analytical Resources Branch. Matt talked briefly about the Assembly Bill 729, so I'll jump right into Assembly Bill 729 passed last year, made changes to plan requirements included in the Product Stewardship for Carpet law. CalRecycle and CARE worked together to establish timelines for CARE to meet the new plan requirements. One of those requirements is for a stewardship organization to submit a contingency plan that describes how program activities will continue to be carried out in the event that a plan expires before a new one is approved or if a plan is revoked. CARE, the stewardship organization, set up an escrow account and submitted a contingency plan on agreed upon date with CalRecycle on April 30th, 2020, and with a minor clarification on May 14, 2020. Prior to submitting its contingency plan to CalRecycle, CARE submitted a draft to the advisory committee for review as required by statute. The advisory committee provided CARE with several recommendations. CARE integrated most of the recommendations and provided an explanation for recommendations that were not integrated. CalRecycle acknowledges the advisory committee and CARE for working together to review and submit recommendations on draft contingency plan in a timely manner under extremely challenging circumstances presented by COVID-19 pandemic. CalRecycle and CARE worked closely together on what a contingency plan should contain to meet the intent of statute. The contingency plan describes how core program elements will function rather than describing a detailed how-to plan. The contingency plan addresses core program elements such as revenue and expense flow, audit and data reporting, operation and grant administration, and education and outreach. CARE outlines how the department will continue to operate programs financing mechanism. Manufacturers would continue to file a report of quarterly California carpet sales and remit assessment to the independent accounting firm contracted by CARE to confidentially receive and review manufacturers' sales information and verify assessment amount paid into the program. Recyclers would continue to file monthly subsidy requests with the independent accounting firm. The oversight of the accounting firm would be transitioned from CARE to CalRecycle. CalRecycle would direct payment from escrow account. In its contingency plan, CARE commits to provide detailed documentation and training to CalRecycle for up to 6 months on core program activities, including assessment receipts, subsidy and grant payment, public drop-off site management, and ongoing education and outreach. The 6-month transition outlined in the contingency plan was included at CalRecycle's request to enable the efficient and effective execution of program activities needed to minimize any disruption to carpet collectors, sorters, and processors until a new plan is approved. CARE also commits to provide CalRecycle with a list of its contracts which CARE determined as transferable, and the models built using California public funds, including the economic model, financial model, and subsidy justification model. Staff evaluated CARE's California Carpet Stewardship Contingency Plan for compliance with the requirement of statute. CARE's contingency plan commits to provide detailed documentation and training on its program activities to CalRecycle, which will allow CalRecycle to carry out core program activities needed to maintain and support the carpet recycling industry until a new carpet stewardship plan is approved. The escrow account established by CARE will allow the transfer of all unexpended funds and ongoing consumer assessment in the event of termination or revocation of CARE's carpet stewardship plan. Additionally, CARE states in the contingency plan that all unexpended funds and control of the escrow account will be transferred to CalRecycle within 30 days. For these reasons, staff determined that CARE's escrow account for the contingency plan satisfy the requirements set forth in statute. CalRecycle solicited comments from stakeholders. We received 2 comment letters. One stakeholder recommended that CalRecycle disapprove the contingency plan because it does not align with requirement in statute to protect fee payer money or quickly transfer all unexpended funds and ongoing consumer assessment. This stakeholder also expressed concern that 6-month transition that CARE has outlined in its contingency plan does not facilitate a clean break following termination or revocation of its carpet stewardship plan. Additionally, this stakeholder believed that there should be a minimum account balance in an amount sufficient to run the program for at least 30 days, as AB 729 gives the designated agent 30 days to start accepting assessment and making payment, while CARE transfers the unexpended funds. While CalRecycle understands a desire to require some level of reserve be held in an escrow account, CalRecycle believes that holding 30 days worth of funds, about $22 million, indefinitely in an escrow account would not benefit the program. Furthermore, the 6-month transition was included at CalRecycle's request to enable the efficient and effective execution of program activities needed to minimize any disruption to carpet collectors, sorters, and processors. The second stakeholder voiced general concern about CARE's program, which CalRecycle determined were not applicable to the contingency plan or its adherence to statute. Staff presents 3 options for the acting director to consider. Following careful analysis of CARE's contingency plan and consideration of the requirements of statute, staff recommend that the acting director select option 1, approval of CARE's contingency plan. These slides are posted on today's public meeting notice. If you would like to contact us, please email carpet@calrecycle.ca.gov. If you would like to receive updates, follow the link to sign up for CalRecycle's Carpet listserv. This concludes my presentation. Before I turn it back to Matt, I would like to wish Elliot and Ken all the best in their retirements. Thank you. Matt?
All right, thank you. So we welcome any stakeholder comments on the staff presentation. Did any, I think there are a few.
Yeah, I see at least one, but if you see another, please. This is also from CPSC. CPSC has been engaged with the California Carpet Stewardship Program since its inception to advocate for the protection and good use of local government and fee payers' money. We do not believe CARE's submitted contingency plan offers the level of protection needed to ensure a swift and complete transfer of California fee money within 30 days of a potential revocation or decertification of CARE as the authorized stewardship organization. If CalRecycle needs assistance during a transition, the assistance should be at request, not obligatory. If someone fires a contractor, they might not want it mandatory to keep them around for 6 months thereafter. AB 729, passed in 2019, added improvements to the Carpet Stewardship Program, including mandatory introduction of differential assessments and the amendments to the plan to meet this new requirement. As CARE accommodates the new assessment system, CalRecycle should consider requiring CARE to use California fee money to develop a California-specific cost conversion model to justify the subsidy needed to cover the cost of converting collected carpet into recycled output. This should prevent the need for CalRecycle to rely on CARE's national model. In our recommendation to review contracts held by CARE, we hope to verify any conflicts with contracts under CARE's national program that would prevent the contracting parties from contracting with CalRecycle or any subsequent program operator in California. We thank CalRecycle for the thorough review and support your decision today in hopes to address transparency of the models and contracts in the fall as CARE incorporates the rest of the AB 729 requirements.
Yeah, thank you. That's valuable input, and we look forward to continued engagement as we work on that.
Thanks, Matt. I'm just looking through to see if there are others. Did you see any other comments on this particular item in the portal?
No, I'm seeing mattress, but not carpet.
I haven't either, so yeah, so thank you for that. Thank you, Fareed, for your presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To Fareed and Robert Gillum and also Ty Moore from the legal office for all their hard work on this. We are recommending approval of the contingency plan, and we are going to transmit that request for approval to Ken later today for his consideration. I have one more announcement for any of our stakeholders who have hung in there.
Certainly.
An informational item that we released the oil payment program notice of funds availability and application instructions on Thursday. The used oil payment program provides payments to local governments for operating their used oil and filter collection and recycling programs. In the past, $11 million have been made available for this purpose, but due to the condition of the used oil fund and the limitations placed on us in statute, only $7.1 million are available in fiscal year 2021. Of course, this is subject to an approved state budget and funding availability, but that's our estimate. And this decrease is the result of a number of factors, including COVID-19. People are getting less oil changes because they're driving less during the pandemic. Generally, vehicles can go longer intervals between oil changes, and so there's less oil being purchased. This is a good thing from a oil management perspective, but does reduce revenues to the fund. And as electric vehicles are adopted at higher and higher rates, we expect less lubricating oil sales, which will further impact the solvency of the fund. Per statute, when the reserve in our used oil fund is depleted, the full 11 million can't be funded. Rather, a minimum of 50% of the funds remaining in the fund, in the reserve, after mandatory expenses are accounted for, must go to this OPP program. So it's that 50% after mandatory expenditures that how we arrived at the 7.1 million. There's a web-based application. Applications are due on July 9th. And anyhow, if you have questions, the staff is Annabelle Farrell. So to any of our local governments, we know that's a painful reduction. Some of those grants are used for infrastructure, but others are paying staff at local governments. Local governments are having a tough time right now. So we are conscious of the shared sacrifice that we're all having to go through during these budget cuts. So I apologize for ending the meeting on a down note, but I wanted to make that announcement to any stakeholders who are still with us 40 minutes after the planned conclusion of our meeting. So back to you, Ken.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. It's unfortunate. Zoe, I think you have the next item, just an announcement on the...
Yeah, just a quick announcement that we're going to be having our first statewide commission meeting on June 24th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. So that's next week. And this meeting will be held via video conference. And the public comment process will be very similar to the public comment process for this meeting. There will be the portal that you can submit comments through and also an email address. And I just want to thank the commissioners, our 1583 team, our legal office, for everyone's work and flexibility to stand this first meeting up slightly differently than we had all envisioned, to adhere to physical distancing and overcome some of the other challenges associated with the pandemic. So looking forward to that discussion. Please tune in.
Thank you, Zoe. Mark DeBee, been waiting so patiently down there. I'm going to turn it to you, if I could, please.
Great. Thank you. So today I am again presenting the quarterly information update specifically on the Waste Evaluation and Enforcement Branch on mandatory commercial recycling, the MCR law, and the mandatory commercial organic recycling, also known as the MORE law. With regards to MCR, the Jurisdiction Compliance Unit currently has 6 jurisdictions on active compliance orders. Those include the cities of Commerce, Compton, Tracy, Waterford, Oxnard, and El Segundo. JCU is providing oversight and monitoring each city's effort to implement their respective local implementation plans to address program gaps. Also wanted to provide an update regarding the previously scheduled March 17th, 2020 public hearing in which we were going to consider issuance of a compliance order for failure to adequately implement California's recycling of organic waste laws for the city of Brea. On the day the hearing was scheduled, a decision was made that because of concerns relative to COVID-19, we would postpone that hearing. Since postponing the hearing, JCU has been in frequent communication with the city regarding the city's ongoing efforts to implement the MORE program. The department is looking at future dates to reschedule a hearing should a hearing be necessary. JCU is continuing to review 5 jurisdictions, the cities of Banning, Ceres, Cudahy, Norco, and Riverside, for consideration of issuance of an MCR and MORE compliance order. And JCU is also reviewing 3 jurisdictions, cities of Compton, McFarland, and Seal Beach, for MORE compliance issues, as in organic recycling, not more, as in additional. Thank you. That concludes my report. Are there any questions? I didn't see any.
I don't believe so. I'm seeing none. Very good. Thank you for that, Mark. So, Adam, I'm going to turn to you. There have been several questions from stakeholders, many of them revolving around scrap prices, what CalRecycle can do to assist in that regard. There's also a question from Mr. Lang about rulemaking. I'll defer to you on how, so they kind of hover around a similar theme. So I'll defer to you on how best to approach responses to that.
On the rulemaking question, I'm sorry, Elliot, but I'm going to punt this to you.
Okay. Well, there were 3 questions, as I recall. Let me just pull it up. Certainly one of which I can answer, which was the question about the rule. Last year, the rulemaking calendar was, sorry, I have to turn off the automatic toggle. Try that again. The second question from Mr. Lang, last year the rulemaking calendar was virtually ignored. What is being done to correct this year? So the rulemaking calendar, which we actually talk about when we adopt it every year, is actually simply a list of rulemakings that we may do within the year. They contain estimates of when we think we are going to do those rulemakings. They're not set in stone. We're not required to do those, and they are subject, obviously, to various issues like staffing and the like. So it is actually very common for a number of items, and if you look at the RFAs for the last 5 or 6 years, a number of items on that list to carry over from year to year. So the rulemaking calendar is not ignored. The reason there are more on that than otherwise is what you don't want to do is not list one that you actually want to have happen, because then you are actually prohibited from adopting it during that year. So just, I'll add that clarification. And then the other question about the rulemaking is just specific to prepayment controls. So I don't actually know what the status of that is, Adam.
We're in the process of tidying up the language, getting it ready for public notice.
Okay.
I've been pushing to try and get that out as fast as we can. As for the first question that Mr. Lang asks, what are the reasons the department has never associated the reduction in recycling to the success of fraud prevention? It's a false premise. We have said that reductions in recycling rate can be attributed to increased fraud prevention, as well as a number of other factors.
Right.
Not the least of which is the elimination of the commingled rate.
Right.
And the imposition of lower consumer daily load limits.
Yeah.
But of course, improving our effectiveness in preventing fraud is going to reduce the recycling rate to something that is more accurate than it would be if we didn't prevent fraud.
Right. And we've been clear about this for several years.
Yes.
The elimination of the commingled rate, increased processor oversight, the work we've done on the California border with other states, as well as changes in consumer behavior, you name it, changes in economy. Yeah. To your point, there's so many variables that we cannot authoritatively link one reduction to a particular discrete regulatory change.
And beyond that, it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to quantify the amount of fraud that there is. We can only talk about how much fraud we find, but we can't quantify the things that we cannot find. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you for those questions.
Sure.
So Adam, on the other points.
Okay, so there's been a flurry of emails coming in, as well as comments on the portal, that are all centered around essentially the same issue, which is what is it that CalRecycle is doing, or can CalRecycle do to assist recycling centers so that they can stay open, not go out of business, and continue to provide recycling opportunities to Californians. And, you know, we're doing everything that we can do to that end. I think it's important to note that the new processing payments that went into effect in January are significantly higher than they were last year, and that we've just announced that there's going to be a quarterly adjustment in the PET processing payment beginning in July, as well as the handling fees will be going up in July as well. So those are all good news. I suppose if I was a recycling center operator, I would say, thanks, that's better than a poke in the eye. But I sure could use even more than that. And we can only distribute funds that we have that have been appropriated and designated for payment for this for these sort of activities. So, for example, there's the $5 million from AB 54 for the supplemental payments to low volume recycling centers. Or is that from a previous bill? Anyway, there's the $5 million that we've been paying, and there's another $5 million that is yet to be paid that will hopefully start as quickly as possible in the next fiscal year for additional low volume recycling center support. There has been, as one of the questions pointed out, the AB 54 handling fee eligibility, which is set to expire at the end of this month. This was an eligibility for recycling centers that opened after a certain date that are not located at a supermarket site to receive handling fees, as long as they're within the zone. I think that's been a successful program. The question asked for some quantification of that. I don't have that at my fingertips. I don't, for example, know exactly how many recycling centers were able to take advantage of that additional subsidy. I don't think it's a whole lot, maybe a couple of dozen at the most. As far as extending that program, that would take a legislative act. That's not something that the department can do on its own. And that leads me back to a lot of the questions that have to do with scrap prices being very low. This is mentioned in numerous letters and in numerous comments. In particular, aluminum and PET prices are at 20-year lows. PET is primarily low because the cost of oil went down so incredibly earlier this year to historic lows on that. And of course, there's nothing that CalRecycle can do to change the global commodities markets that affect the scrap prices of these materials. That's not very helpful, I understand, to a recycling center who's feeling the pinch. But as I said, we're increasing the processing payments. That should help. But beyond that, all of this is going to require legislative change. And changes that would be consistent with the options that CalRecycle provided in the report that we wrote pursuant to AB 54. Things like adding flexibility to the program, making adjustments based on geographical or other factors that impact recycling centers, and taking a good look at what does convenience really mean for consumers and how do we foster that. So that's a pretty high-level response to a whole lot of very detailed questions. I appreciate everyone's concern for sure, but we're kind of doing what we can. When someone asks, what exactly is CalRecycle doing to push these policies forward? That's not really a question that I'm at liberty to answer. It has to do with, internal legislative reviews and the legislative and political process. I would only hope that the folks who are asking these questions are also asking their legislators the similar questions.
So Adam, one specific question I wanted to kind of look into, it was from Mr. Nguyen with Ocean Recycling.
Yes.
He asked a question that I'm interpreting as seeking some support with understanding regulatory compliance, and so who he could reach out to at CalRecycle for that.
Well, it kind of depends on what the precise issue is. We have several different groups within the division that deal with compliance issues, but a good place to start is always your certification specialist, the person in our certification branch who is your primary contact for questions about the program. If there are specific enforcement-related issues, perhaps a notice of violation was issued or something like that, then you would need to be contacting the enforcement branch.
Okay. So there's a contact, there's contact information from Mr. Nguyen here, so maybe someone can follow up and just kind of.
I'll have someone give you a
just
call.
dig a little deeper on what his query is.
Or her a call.
Yeah, there were several questions, but that one was one that I felt we could at least have someone reach out and try and provide some assistance. Adam, thank you very much for that. I'm just going to check the
There were a
poll.
couple of other points that I wanted to cover in terms of my agenda item. People have been asking about the closures of recycling centers and the impact of COVID on volumes and things like that. And at previous monthly meetings, I've talked about the declining volume that we've been seeing at recycling centers since the stay-at-home order was issued. And since then, we've been seeing those rates creeping up. We're definitely not back to normal in terms of the volume of material that seems to be coming to buyback centers, but is definitely increasing. I hesitate to get into precise numbers because the data that we have truly is preliminary. It's just kind of giving us a sense. It's sort of like if you want to know how fast the wind is blowing, you can lick your finger and hold it up in the air and get an idea that it's either blowing fast or slow, but it's not really very precise. And I think it's just really important that folks understand, the rates we issue on a biannual basis with these updates. We do it that way because of inherent issues with how the data is collected and sorted and the timing of various reports. So that being said, it's also normal that there are seasonal variations and ups and downs in the marketplace. If you run a recycling center, you already know this. It can be how hot was it, or what day of the week did a particular holiday land on will increase consumption, whether it's on a Tuesday or a Friday, and things like this, and when do people go into the recycling centers. So there's a million things. In terms of the closures of recycling centers due to COVID and the temporary closures, I would advise people not to put too much emphasis on that. At this point, we don't have any kind of solid data that we could use to draw a forecast from. So recycling centers that closed because of COVID, temporarily closed because of COVID, they may have closed because the local jurisdiction said they weren't allowed to be open. They may have closed because they were afraid of contracting the disease and were being cautious. They also may have closed because their customers were following the stay-at-home order and weren't coming in, so there were no customers. So rather than paying someone to man the recycling center, they've temporarily closed to cut their overhead. We don't have detail on any of those things. And in response to the question about keeping the numbers on our website up to date in terms of which recycling centers are open and which ones are closed, and the process that we go through for making those determinations. So that's an issue that we've been dealing with off and on for many years. Recycling centers are, under regulation, required to tell us when they're closed or when they closed, but as you might expect, some of them don't. They close down, they don't notify us. And to keep those numbers current and up to date to the day requires some resources that are just not available to us right now. It's kind of beyond the scope of what we can do in the absence of having every recycling center call us every day to say, yes, I'm open. And who would answer those calls? So we're muddling through with that as best as we can. Someone asked about surplus funds in the beverage container recycling fund because of the decline in redemption due to COVID, and what are we going to do with that money? Again, we can only spend money that's been appropriated by the legislature for particular purposes. But beyond that, I would caution anyone from speculating that there's going to be a huge trove of money sitting there because of the COVID. That's because we fully expect that the vast majority of the containers that were not redeemed in late March and April will eventually be redeemed and paid on. So that dip will have a corresponding spike. That's our analysis on that. Two last things. One is just a reminder that we are approaching the end of the fiscal year, and that typically results in about a week-long disruption in payments going out around the transition from one fiscal year to the next. The state controller's office usually goes dark for about a week or so, and that can cause some checks to be a week or so late. So I think anyone who's been with the program for any length of time, for more than a year or two, already knows that, but I thought I'd remind you. The other point is for those recipients of the curbside supplemental payment, just to let you know, we sent those payments out early this year. For the last number of years, we've been making those payments in December, but we made them in April, I think, this year, or May. I can't remember exactly. But we were able to do that to speed things up because we know that folks are crunched because of COVID, and they could use that extra money. Just a warning that doesn't mean you're getting paid again in December. That is this year's payment. There won't be another payment in December, but we'll probably be paying 2021's payment in the spring as well, and next spring. I think that's all I've got. If there are any other questions, please let me know.
I'm checking to see. Just one question. have you considered raising the handling fees in addition to processing fees to help offset commodity markets? Other bottle bill states have higher handling fees, and they seem to thrive.
So I think that's a complicated question that gets into some terminology. In California, the handling fee is a very specific subsidy that is made to recycling centers located at or adjacent to dealers in convenience zones. And in fact, that payment will be going up in July because we make a change to that rate every year based on surveys and the cost of living. If you're talking about the payments that are made to recycling centers for handling materials, yes, California does that differently than other states. We don't just pay a flat rate per container to all recycling centers for every container that they redeem, but that is an interesting idea and something that would require a legislative change.
Very good. Thank you, Adam. Just going to do one more check here real quick. I'm not seeing anything additional. Well, thank you everyone for hanging with us. This did run a little longer than anticipated. Appreciate you all being here and participating. Once again, Elliott Block, we will miss you. Thank you for all that you've done. So that concludes our monthly public meeting for June. Please continue to be safe and stay healthy. Please continue to take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.